What's up, everybody? Welcome to Ink, Drink, Think. I'm your host, Michael Pickard. Today, on this lovely episode 2.5, because we lost the audio for episode 2, I am joined by my lovely, talented, talkative co-hosts and friends to break down and talk about Spider-Man Sinister Six, his deadly foes, his worst of the worst enemies. Joining me, as always, Johnny Wise. Johnny, you're on the screen.
Hey, how you doing? I'm Johnny. So today I'm going to be drawing Venom, and the drawing is mostly going to be spot blacks because I've cheated my way onto this and I've pretended I can draw and I can't really draw. And today I am drinking San Miguel, as I was last time, because it is a cheap lager that I can buy right down the corner from my house, and that is me.
Can you give us a quick tease of what you're working on?
Yeah, why not? Let's see. I'll just bring it up to the screen right here. Let's see if you can see that. So,
oh yeah,
I got the figure in there. I was pretty happy because it's a tough angle, and I went completely unreferenced.
Nice.
And so I kind of gave myself a break after that. I was like, you deserve a relax. So the background is just going to be black, mostly.
That's awesome. It's going to turn out great. Joining us is our co-host, Nate Wells. Nate, you're on the screen.
Hey, what's up, guys? Nate here. Today I'm going to be drawing Shocker versus Spider-Man piece. I wasn't planning on putting Spider-Man in it, but Mike gave us a little tease of his pencils and can't be outdone here, so I added Spider-Man. No, it worked with the composition, and the Shocker solo pieces looked a little boring to me, so added Spidey to it. I've got actually, as opposed to the last episode, I've got pretty finished pencils here. Last time I went in and finished the pencils on the show, but I was a little nervous about the background and the figures on this one, so I went ahead and finished the pencils. So I'm excited to get into the inks, and hopefully it doesn't take too long. But today I'm drinking Fat Tire Amber Ale, America's first carbon-neutral beer, or at least that's what they tell me on the ads on NPR. So trying to do my part and catch a buzz while being green and eco-friendly. So,
well, we support you in your eco-friendly agendas, Miss Poison Ivy. Can you show us what you're working on, Nate?
Yeah, for sure. Let me figure out how to switch my camera. And boom. I got this guy here. Hopefully the camera's facing the right way. Is this my right hand, guys?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Still figuring out this camera setup. Yeah, I'm excited to get into it, and pretty happy with the poses here. So
yeah, for everybody watching, you can stop drooling now. We all know it's pretty incredible.
Or you can start drooling if you're not drooling. So
Yeah.
get with it.
Either way, get ready to drool. No, it's phenomenal. Like we were talking your piece up a little bit, Nate. Like that layout is phenomenal, and the anatomical structure and the buildings and everything. It's incredible. It's so great.
Thank you.
And finally, like I said, I'm your host, Mike Pickard. I'm enjoying a Dogfish Head 60-minute IPA tonight, and I'm going to be working on this Spider-Man Kraven the Hunter cover, which I've started prior to recording, just so I didn't have to noodle in all of these building details on camera and get frustrated and start cursing like a sailor in front of everybody. But yeah, I'm excited to get into this episode. Spider-Man's villains are, of course, some of the most iconic bad guys in all of comics, and joined by you two today. Of course, I'm really excited to get into this. Some of you might be noticing we're not joined by our co-host Todd. Todd's having some technical difficulties tonight, but that said, we're still going to be able to add Todd's footage to this video. At the end of it, if you stick around, you'll get a time-lapse video of Todd working on his piece for tonight. I'm not sure what Spider-Man villain he's doing. I think it might be Doc Ock, but I know it's going to be fantastic. So if you don't mind, stick around till the end, check out Todd's piece. And with that said, let's get into talking about some Spider-Man bad guys. So,
All right.
This is a fun pitch I thought about a little bit, and I'm springing it on you guys now. But I was thinking about it on a run today. But Spider-Man.
Is this gonna be a thing? Gonna spring some shit on?
Yeah. every week, get ready.
I've been drinking beer for an hour with you guys, and now you're gonna make me think.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it. You get people really alcoholed up, and then you drop some news on them. But of course, Spider-Man's bad guys have been known to team up as a group called the Sinister Six, and everybody has their favorite of Spider-Man's bad guys. But if you guys were to pick an artist to do a Sinister Six book, who do you think you would pick?
Ooh.
Because the Sinister Six are such an eclectic group. They have so many unique visuals to them, especially depending on what characters are on the roster. Like Green Goblin to Kingpin to Electro to Kraven are all so drastically unique. I feel like so many artists could put a unique spin on that book. But I was interested to see what you guys might think might be a good pitch for that book.
Oof. You talking about roster or artist or what are you looking for?
I was looking for artists, but if you guys have like an ideal roster, if you're like, oh, I'd want to see like Paulo Rivera with like Venom and Electro on the team, you can do whatever you want to do with it. Very open pitch on this one.
All right. I would go for artist. I would be going for Trad Moore, I think.
Oh, yeah.
He has a lot of fun with his characters. I think he would kill it on any given roster. And that particular roster is a tough one. For Trad, you'd have to have like Shocker. I don't think I'd put Venom in there, even though I'm drawing Venom. I'm kind of decided to draw Venom because I've never had that much interest in him, like a tiny bit, but he's always seemed a little bit 90s. So I kind of wanted to draw something that I'm not as interested in and try and make it something I like. I'd have Electro in there. I'd have Doc Ock in there. I don't know. But Trad Moore, for sure, I think would do a great job.
Yeah, that's a really solid pick, especially with how fluid his inks can be. Especially with like a Silver Surfer book. Like thinking about how he would illustrate like Electro doing his thing would be like crazy. Or even Shocker, like thinking about how he could handle those different visual energy languages would be really cool to see.
Yeah, exactly. And then if you got Doc Ock in there as well, you got like all those fucking tentacles just running about in the background. That'll be fun.
Yeah, I love that pitch. Tradmore is. I think you kind of just sold me on that one. I had Paulo Rivera in mind, but Tradmore is just so good.
That would kill it. Yeah. Well, I say that as Tradmore is one of my quite big influences, so I kind of cheated a little bit there.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard not to pick just like an artist that I love. My first instinct is first name that came to mind was Lee Weeks. I love his Spider-Man.
Oh yeah.
He does. I like to think of his style as sort of like house style plus, because he does like superhero comic book work, but there's so much more, I think, in his stuff than you get. I don't want to name names of people that I don't particularly like, but if you open like any given Marvel or DC book, the work's good, but it gets kind of homogenous sometimes. And I think Lee Weeks' stuff, even though it's definitely that like superhero comic book look, man, there's so much good going on with his
yeah.
It would probably be my first pick. And depending on the tone of the book, if you got a little weird with it, which I think you could get kind of weird and goofy with a Sinister Six book, as well as you could do like a serious Spider-Man story with it. Not that there's a right or wrong answer, but I think, and I think we talked about him on the podcast before. I'm not sure. Jason Latour, I think, could do a really fun, like villain book. I think that would be.
Yeah. I was honestly going to pick Jason Latour, but I think every time we've met up, I've mentioned Jason Latour. So I was like, he was my first pick, and I was like, I can't do that again. So yeah, I think that would be a great pick.
His work on Spider-Gwen too. I don't know if you guys have ever read any of those trades or even the issues for that matter, but his take on the Marvel universe in that multiversal aspect is so cool. He's got a really great take on the Vulture and the Punisher for that matter, who's of course not really a Sinister Six member, but he just gets so creative with how he's visually articulating those characters and those archetypes that he would kill it on a Sinister Six book.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. He's one of those, I think I mentioned it last time, but I didn't record, but he's one of the people I would want him to draw. Like, I mean, I love his writing, but like his drawing, I would just be happy to see him on any book. It would just be incredible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Jason Latour, you guys both gave such great answers. I'm like falling back on like Paulo Rivera. I really like because I think he has like a realism in his work that I think could work well for a crime story involving the Sinister Six. But both of you guys really nailed it. Like I'm like, I would really read either of those titles.
Yeah, it depends so much on like the like what the story is, the tone of the book, but. Yeah, what's your pick? What's your pick, Mike?
So Paulo Rivera would be my number one, but there are a bunch. I mean, I think someone else who we've mentioned pretty much every time we've met up is Andrew McLean. His work is so much fun, and Nate and I were talking about how we've both read Superior Foes of Spider-Man by Nick Spencer, which is such a fun take on the concept of the Sinister Six that I think you could do a really great lighthearted story. And his visuals, Andrew McLean's that is, are so poppy and so unique and so energetic that you could do a really cool heist story in New York with his art style, and I would read the hell out of it. I'd read it like 10 times.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great.
Like the way he calls Agatha, the head in Headlopper, is very much the Green Goblin, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, if you wanted to get really dark with like a villain story, my pick every time for like a semi-serious but gorgeous book is John Paul Leon. I think he does an amazing Spider-Man, and yeah, I think if he did like a villain team up book, which I don't even really know that he might not even want to do it. I don't know. But oh my god, yeah, I'll buy anything that guy does, even if it's like just a cover. The interiors could look like shit, but if John Paul Leon did the cover, I'll buy it.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you guys have a favorite Spider-Man villain? I know with like when you talk about the greatest villains in all of comics, it's really a conversation between. I mean, Nate might get upset as a Superman fan, but it's almost always a conversation of who's got the better villains, Spider-Man or Batman for that matter.
Superman doesn't have the best villains. He's got a couple of heavy hitters, but generally he doesn't have the best villains. Yeah, it's Spider-Man and Batman.
Yeah, no question. But do you guys have a favorite or a couple of favorites that you really, truly love in that Rogues Gallery?
I like Doc Ock a lot.
Yeah.
I like that he like any good villain, he's sort of a weird, perverse mirror of the hero. Mm-hmm. In like in the ways that Peter can be kind of an amateur scientist. Doc Ock is, and I love the way they do it in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, where he is sort of like a teacher and an idol of Peter Parker's, and then turns into this horrible monster and redeems himself. I think he's a really fascinating character, and visually, he's like a little kind of round guy with a bowl cut. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's fun. I like Shocker a lot. Me and my friend have like an ongoing joke about how the Shocker's kind of more of a Batman villain, I feel, because how is he not dead? Like, he's just like a guy who has some gloves that do some kind of pathetic sometimes stuff. Like,
Yeah, Shocker's a bit like Firefly in a lot of ways. Like, kind of like a C-list villain who just kind of has like one tech gimmick that's kind of his thing,
Yeah, exactly. Like, how is he not just dead immediately? I don't get it.
Yeah, the reason I wanted to draw Shocker today, like I admitted this to you guys in the chat, I really don't know much about the character. I think I may have read some of the early stuff like that Ramita drew, and I did read the Superior FOES, at least the first trade, which was phenomenal. But I just love his costume. I think he's got a great costume.
Yeah, no, that's great.
And that is 100% what I based my choice for this week's drawing on, is who looks cool and who do I want to draw? And it was, Shocker.
And just like, I guess, the concept of his character, his costume is great and very silly. Like, the whole pillowy aspect, it's like really...
like a quilt.
Yeah, it's so weird. Just really great. I just really like a costume that looks a bit stupid.
Yeah, it sort of draws attention to that, like, as much as we all love these stories, they are silly. Even the more serious ones.
Shut your damn mouth, Nate, before you make us all lose out on job opportunities.
You know what? They are silly. Yeah, someone at Marvel's watching this like, well, you're off the ticket. We were going to hire you. You were actually Ant-Man. Not anymore.
Yeah. No, I do love that design though. It's so interesting. Like the quilt look. Like, what other character in comics has that pattern on him,
Yeah. And why? Why did they... I think it's great.
Yeah, at first glance, he's wearing fishnets. It's kind of sexy.
That's true. It does get the sex appeal.
Yeah. Shocker's a sexy villain.
I guess that's why he's on every version of the Sinister Six.
Green Goblin's not sexy, dude. Shocker's sexy.
It's got a mysterious edge to him.
Yeah, Black Cat, no thank you. Shocker.
Shocker's got to have a hot costume. You ever thought about that? How hot that quilt must feel in like 90-degree New York summer weather? That's got to be awful. Yeah. That's got to be the worst.
But he's got to rob banks, dude. And he's got to have his shocky gloves to do that, I guess.
Yeah.
So, it's a small sacrifice. Yeah, he's probably really sweaty.
Ugh, I can just imagine how awful these characters probably smell. Like, I'm drawing Craven right now. Craven's got no sleeves on. You think that crazy man wears any deodorant? He's wearing a lion's head pelt as a jacket, There's no way this guy's got Old Spice on.
Let's see. What do I want to use to ink this? I have no idea. I want to use a pen to do a lot of the detail, like in Spider-Man's mask and in the face for Shocker and in some of the glove details, but I don't know what pen I'm going to use. Let's see. I think I'm going to go in with the Hunt 107 and see how that treats me today.
That's a solid choice.
Yeah, this is how I draw everyone. I just kind of like randomly choose a tool and go in. And I feel like most of the time it works. Sometimes I make horribly wrong decisions, so we'll see. We'll see how it works. Do you guys do this where when you start inking, you like start in a place where you it's like okay to mess up.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Mm,
No, I'm
As-
a
as-
lunatic. I go right in.
Oh, really? That's brave, man.
That's what I have. I always have these little pieces of scratch paper lying around from when I like trim to like borders and whatnot. So I use them as kind of testing grounds. Like sometimes I'll like do a warm up doodle on them. I usually try to start with a clean one for these episodes, or clean enough that it doesn't have like any ancillary characters hanging out on there. But
Yeah.
I use the little boards to kind of like get out my my jitters to some extent before I like get in. But I almost always start with like primary details. I'm always like, oh, I should start with Spider-Man, you know, the central focus of my drawing, even though I'm not properly like warmed up or anything.
Yeah, I've decided on I'm gonna do Shocker's face because I was really the pencils are pretty concrete, so it's I think gonna be hard to mess up. We'll see how I do it. As I think my head was just fully in the frame, so sorry guys. All right, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna go in on Spidey's mask here.
I just want to say up front that I did not inspire that. I did not
I'd
encourage it.
rather
I did not.
ruin the drawing at the beginning than do a great drawing and then ruin it. You know what? I think this is gonna work. So yeah.
My villain I chose to draw is the only one that hasn't shown up in film yet. But do you guys have a Spider-Man villain that you're like waiting to see on screen? Is there like one visual character that you're like, oh, that has to be done soon?
I don't know.
I was literally just going to say Mysterio, and then I forgot that was the fucking last film that they did.
Yeah, I wanna be funny and say Electro, but I didn't hate Jamie Foxx as Electro. I just thought he was like a little too goofy
Yeah.
for the tone of what I thought those movies were going for. He kind of he seemed, and I'm sure somebody has made this comparison before. I'm probably not being original, but he feels more like a Joel Schumacher Batman villain a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. Even like the blue makeup and everything was really.
Yeah,
That's a bold
very
take.
Mr.
That's a
Freeze.
bold take.
there was that weird dubstep fight at the end of the movie. Just an odd choice for that character.
Yeah.
Like just make Green Goblin the villain. You've got a great, Dane DeHaan is playing Green Goblin. He's a phenomenal actor. Just make him the bad guy.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I guess it goes back to the whole silliness thing, and maybe there's like smarter people than me who make movies who know what works and what doesn't. But for me, I don't want to see like the ultimate comics blue version. If you're gonna do Electro, I want to see his big stupid yellow mask. There's like in the shape of like
Electro.
shock masks. I'm like, just do that. That's funny.
Which is kind of funny
that's
that the first Amazing Spider-Man movie went with like one of those more outlandish Spider-Man villain designs, the lizard, literally a giant reptile with a trench coat or a lab jacket. But with like Electro, they were like, oh, we got to go pretty serious with this. Even Dane DeHaan's Green Goblin in that movie is very much like, we have to make this look like a very serious sci-fi monster villain kind of look, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, like you already jumped the shark. Just go in.
Yeah, definitely. Have you guys ever seen the test footage from Sam Raimi's first Spider-Man movie of the Green Goblin mask they almost used?
Yeah.
Oh god, it's so
It would've been
cool.
good.
I have not.
Oh, Nate, you're in for a treat, man. It's so cool. It's all like, because Sam Raimi coming from that horror background, it's all practical effects. And so it's a mask that looks like a comic accurate Green Goblin mask, but it can emote.
Really?
It can like frown, it can like scrunch its brow. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Oh wow. I wonder why they didn't go with it.
I forget. I think I was reading up on it, and it was something about either it not being light enough. Like I don't think they could actually film in it for like hours at a time. Like I think applying it and whatnot. But it was a really cool concept. Like it's a shame that it didn't work out in its time.
Yeah, it's really good. And it's got that like prosthetic thing of like, it looks kind of terrifying in like a weird, like the eyes are really like bulbousy, and it just looks so like the way it moves. And then sometimes it looks almost like sad in a really eerie kind of way. I think it would have looked really good.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check this out.
So I don't know about you guys, but my Spider-Man reading background is actually pretty limited. Like I would never
Oh yeah, same.
like I would never call myself the world's largest Spider-Man fan, which is funny that we all kind of know so much about Spider-Man and his mythos, and are so connected to it from ancillary media that's not his actual comic books, you know. But I've only ever read really a handful of his books. But do you guys have like a pretty long like history in terms of reading Spider-Man, or?
No, well, I read it all the time as a kid, and I think that's kind of what's like now when I pick up like a modern book, I'm like put off in like for the wrong reason. So I don't really think I'm writing this, but I will be like, I'll pick up a book, and they'll have like introduced a new villain like every single time, which is good. They should be doing that. But for me, I'm just picking it up and I'm like, okay, well, where's fucking Green Goblin? I picked it up for this. Like, what are you doing trying to make up new stuff? Which is definitely the wrong idea to have, I think.
No, yeah, I definitely do not have, as far as my Spidey comics go, I'm kind of super scrub. For me, like my entire working knowledge of Spider-Man is from the Raimi movies and the '90s cartoon.
Yeah,
I've gone back and read some of the Lee Ditko stuff, and then I really enjoyed when I was like a teenager. I started reading like Ultimate Spider-Man, and I enjoyed that. But other than that, it's like just odd issues here and there.
yeah, I read Ultimate
Which is
Spider-Man
odd
like
because
so much.
he's one of my favorite characters, and I haven't really read many of the comics.
Yeah.
But I also feel like there's a weird thing where, like, for Spider-Man, there's only a handful of stories that, like, when you think about, like, Batman stories, like, I feel like most people have a laundry list of, like, you've got to read, like, Long Halloween, Dark Knight, Hush. There's, like, all of these, Batman stories or Superman stories or whatever, even X-Men runs that you're like, oh, you've got to read these. And that's, like, that's the story. That's what you can like base your understanding off of. Like, what are those stories for Spider-Man? I don't even really know.
That's a great question.
Yeah, well, like a lot of them have a bad reputation. Like all I've heard about the Clone Saga is that it's terrible and long, and so like the most famous ones are famously bad. So I mean, or some of them anyway. You don't really get that with a lot of other characters, I think.
Right, where the stories that everyone knows are, you know them because they're good.
Yeah,
which is probably how it should be, but
yeah. With Spider-Man, there's quite a lot that I've been told not to read more than I've been told to read. I think.
Right.
I think that kind of lends itself to the fact that Spider-Man has been adapted so many times, whether it's all the cartoons you're talking about or the films. There's so many different takes on the character that it's almost like those non-comic book versions of the character work so well and like establish themselves so well that when the books aren't as narratively successful, it's almost like written off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like people probably assume Spider-Man in their minds is more of a film character and cartoon character than a comic book one, I would say, for the mass public at least.
Yeah.
Well, I was listening,
screaming at us right now, going like, "Oh, you haven't read this, you don't even know," which is true.
Yes.
But Guy in
Yeah,
the
we're gonna get
comments
that a lot.
typing right now, you're right. You're right. I'm wrong. I will
Yeah,
try.
whatever you say, you're right.
Yeah, I'll try and be more well-read, but I'm not seeing your comment yet, so we're going to keep talking and making you angry.
That's the way we roll
Yeah.
here on Ink Drink Think. We like to upset people and then fact check later.
Yeah. But it is interesting what you were saying. I was listening to a podcast a while ago, and like the basis of the podcast is like one person will research a topic, and then the other person will like that person will then like try and do like a report on it for the others. And they got like a guy on who's like a comic fan to do a Spider-Man episode and like debrief them on Spider-Man. And there was a bit that came up where like the guy was talking about the very basics of it, and he mentioned Peter Parker being a teenager, and one of the co-hosts was like, "Oh wow, I didn't even realize Peter Parker was a teenager. I thought he was like just an adult like every other superhero."
Wow.
Which is weird because the guy must have seen. I think the guy had seen the movies, but I guess he'd probably only seen Tobey Maguire, who I guess is in high school but is a big adult man. So, like,
That's
yeah, I found it weird that the idea of not knowing that Spider-Man is a teenager.
yeah, that's kind of what made him so popular to begin with. Was not only the iconic
Yeah,
design,
exactly.
like, he was a teenager, you know, like people could relate to that.
Yeah, and there weren't any others like that. Like,
Yeah, and he's a teenager and he's not a sidekick,
yeah,
like that deal. And I know that there's people there are comics fans out there. The guy who's typing right now agrees. Like, let Spider-Man grow up. Like, don't make him eternally a teenager and eternally broke. But those are the things that, and maybe I don't have a great understanding of the character. I don't know. Those are the things that I enjoy about him.
yeah, same.
Young guy, and he's not a sidekick, and he is broke. He's sort of like the everyman superhero.
Yeah,
He like the thing I like about Superman. One of the things is like he's got a job. Like Peter Parker's got a job, and he's got a job that he's not really that good at. And his boss hates him, and like I love that.
yeah,
That's a great point. I almost did Miles Morales for this piece, but I think you really
I
touched.
consider it Miles.
Yeah, I think you touched on something really important there, Nate, which was the relatability of Spider-Man and how part of the charm of Peter Parker is that element of he's the everyman. But I also agree and can understand the sentiment from like longtime readers of the character who are like, oh my gosh, how many reboots, how many times does he have to get,
Right.
divorced from Mary Jane or split from Mary Jane, and then they always get back together. Like I can understand that frustration from a narrative standpoint, but I actually really appreciate Miles for that reason, that he's offering a new opportunity for Marvel to kind of approach Spider-Man for a new generation, and allow Peter Parker
exactly.
to advance and still have a Spider-Man who's the down on his luck, generational struggle character,
Yeah,
Right.
no, I love Miles. I think Miles is was an incredible idea. That
Yeah.
is that's actually the most recent Spider-Man stuff I've read has been Miles, and I've found myself more interested in that. I think.
Well, it's also
It's sort of a
Oh, sorry, you go.
Miles' work. I was gonna say like it's sort of astonishing that Miles even works. Not that not a knock against Bendis or anything, but I feel like a lot of times like the type of character that Miles is, where he is a character that is auxiliary to Spider-Man. Sometimes those characters don't work.
Yeah,
They are like a sidekick. And even like I love Miles as well, but a lot of the other characters that are like that, where it's like, oh, like the Signal for Batman. I don't really know anything about the Signal. I don't really care about the Signal. I was never that interested in him.
yeah.
And Miles is sort of like the success story for like that type of character, which is probably why like a character like the Signal exists in the first place. But and I'm sure like for wide audiences, the movie has had a lot to do with that. But he is
for sure.
a character, and you have to go into the multiverse thing to have that character, which is so wacky and comic booky. It's sort of perfect.
Yeah, I think the Spider-Verse really opened people's eyes up to that character, and kind of like you just touched on how it wasn't just like, oh, it's Peter Parker again. Like, we already have a live action one. Why are you giving me an animated one? But then to be like, oh,
Yeah.
it's a different universe. This is where Peter Parker dies and another kid takes up the mantle. I think it let audiences kind of ease into that character a little better and be like, oh, okay, like I get it. Like, it's not like affecting like main continuity or like a character who I've like watched on screen for decades. And be like, okay, I can get behind this other Spider-Man.
Yeah. But you still got
It's so weird.
many.
You have to do stuff like that to tell unique stories. A lot of times you have to go, okay, this is a different universe, just so people aren't like, oh, but in issue whatever, this happened, so this can't be real.
Yeah.
It's super weird. But that's where I feel like you get the best stories is when you do go like, yeah, I know this exists, but we're talking about this now. We're talking about this story. We're talking about this character. Elseworlds are the best, or one shots, or whatever. Marvel What If? What a great idea.
Oh, yeah. Well, it just offers up such a great opportunity for creators to explore what it means to be that character, or what analogs or what thematic elements that character is representative of. It really gives them that opportunity to express that to the fullest without alienating people,
Yeah.
Yeah, if you explain to someone straight away, like, we know you like the continuity, this is a different thing, please enjoy. People are like, okay, I can enjoy it.
Yeah. Although there was still... Do you guys remember when Miles came out, the kickback of people just being like, no, Spider-Man has to be white. Like, the horrendous people who are just like, yeah. That just happens every time, I think. You just always get these freaks who are just, like, absolutely... like extremely angry that every one of their superheroes is not white.
Well, also, I think those people failed to recognize the fact that, like, when Miles debuted, it was in the Ultimate Comics. Like, Peter Parker was still fine. Like, if they were actual comic book fans, they would have been like, oh, I'm still reading the Peter Parker monthly. Like, he's still around, But, like, because of the publicity around Miles' debut, everybody was, or not everybody, but those select individuals were like, this is unbelievable, I can't relate to this character anymore, not actually being fans of the books and understanding that he's not truly replacing Peter Parker. It's over here, it's separate.
Yeah, but exactly on that, the amount of people who were like, I can't relate to this character, it's like, but just because he's not white, is that literally the only reason?
Can't relate to a black guy? What?
Yeah, because Miles is so relatable, like just as relatable as Peter Parker, and it's just hilarious that people are like, nope, can't relate to this. No way, I'm checking out.
Yeah, I think we kind of touched upon it a little bit before of how Miles is like the one of the very clear success stories of introducing a legacy character in modern times who that is really embraced by the public and by the fans,
Yeah.
And I think it is because of that reason that they didn't just do it for the shock value. And like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Riri Williams, who Bendis also created.
Not really.
She was like a female replacement for Iron Man, and her name was Ironheart. And she wore like...
I do know about that.
She wore like an Iron Man suit that she made and whatnot. And like on paper, it's like that's great. Like, if you want to tell any story with any character, you should feel totally free to do it. But it should never come from a place of, this is going to sell, Like, Miles worked so well because it was endearing, He felt authentic. He felt like a real person. And for the first time, it was like, as much as like the Ultimate Comics maybe captured like an early 2000s high school experience, like Miles was coming out when like the three of us were still pretty much teenagers, Like, I think he debuted in 2012, so we all would have been in our teens. and he really captured a lot of people's hearts because it was like, oh, this is what kids are dealing with right now, you know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I think like you said, there is like sometimes you'll get these characters or these moves where it's like for shock value or to like be inclusive for the sake of being inclusive, and I don't think that that's an idea that's bad just on its face, but I do think that you always have to make it story first. You have to make it make sense within the context, or else it does just feel like pandering. And that's something that Miles never
does a disservice to what you're trying to do. Then, if you're trying to be inclusive but not actually making a good character, it actually ends up just doing a disservice to your whole goal in the first place. Exactly.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
Oh, an interesting thing I've found in these videos is, of course, alcohol lowers inhibition, but in drawing, I'm finding that I'm kind of saying F it more often. Like, as opposed to being as meticulous, I'm kind of, and I have a very scratchy and sketchy style to begin with, but even with like these episode pieces, like my Joker piece I did last week, I'm kind of finding myself going like, let's see what happens. Like, let's try this out. And like, I'm coming up with some pretty cool techniques and things that I like, that are true to my style, but are new per piece. Like, I'm doing different things with this Spider-Man that I'm like, all right, that kind of works. Like, I might leave that and not do any brushwork on it and just kind of like see how it looks at the end, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I'm getting the same thing. And I do a lot of like, so for the first step, the Silver Surfer, I think I mentioned it on the episode, but like I started having an issue with like drawing his board because like everything else you can draw kind of wobbly lines, and then his board I hadn't really sketched out too perfectly. And I was kind of just like, oh, fuck it, I'll just come to it like at the end. And then I like, as I was working, we were talking about like whiteout and the process behind that. And I just started to be like, all right, well, how about I just don't draw his board? I just have his board entirely as negative space. And it worked so much better than anything else I've been trying.
Really good.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a really good, like, I think that made the piece for me, is just the decision to do that.
Yeah, I was nervous when we started doing this, that, and like drinking draws are like fun, but anytime I'm doing a piece that I remotely care about, I'm like, I want it to look really good. And so I was going to get really frustrated with myself after like, having a couple beers and then going in and trying to ink something. But actually it's been good. I've actually been pretty happy with the pieces that I've done on these chats so far. I was a little nervous about the line work on this one, but so far so good. I'm really nervous about this leg because I haven't fully figured out the rendering and shading on it yet, which I don't like to do. But I couldn't figure it out in the pencils really well, and so I did decide to leave it up to the inks, and so I'm just kind of like fingers crossed going in, hoping that it works.
Yeah.
Which I really hate doing, but I'm doing it on this piece.
I think that's kind of fun, though. I mean, like, for the most part, I tend to leave my brushwork up to guesswork, like when I'm using a pen, I'll be very meticulous in terms of figuring out the forms that I'm doing. But then when I get in with the brush, I'm kind of like, let's just slap it in. Like, let's get some weird shapes in there. Like, I'm gonna zoom in on your piece right now, Nate, for the audience to see. Like that open leg that you have that you were just talking about, that thigh. I think you're gonna get some really cool brushwork in there. Like you have like an open canvas to really like make a really cool contrasted area. I think it's going to turn out well.
Yeah, I just kind of loosely penciled in what I want the blacks to do, and so I'm drawing the other leg right now. Not doing this one on purpose because I have no idea what I'm going to do. So you'll probably see me make a lot of mistakes and use a lot of whiteout, but we'll see. Maybe we'll get lucky. If it's bad, I'll just black it out. That's what I've decided.
Hey, that works too.
Spidey's costume works when it's dark, so if it's bad, I'll just black it out entirely.
Here's a possibly controversial thing to say. I've said this to other people before, so it's not like I'm riffing, but I think Spider-Man's costume should just almost exclusively be black and red. Like, I know that people love the blue, and of course it really like gives a weird contrast that kind of makes Spider-Man what it is, but I don't know. I think with a name like Spider-Man, it has to be good. How Spider-Man's costume and name kind of evokes a very creepy element, you know? I think it almost works better with that black and red color palette. Like the Superior costume, I think, you know?
Yeah, I gotta say I do agree, because I also think you're right about the like creepy elements, but he's also gotta look. I said this in like the Instagram chat. For me, he should look friendly, because he's like a kid, and I don't think you should lean too much into like him. There's a few artists who are like, I mean, their work is great, but they'll lean into him like being around loads of spiders, and I'm like, that's not the way to go for that, I don't think. So the way to balance that nicely, I think, is to just do black on the costume to have that element of like creepiness, but not like go too crazy with it, and not have him be like a actually like scary character.
Mm-hmm.
Like what Tim Burton would have done with a Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, exactly.
With like a human spider. Probably like a really wacky movie, but like, you know, maybe not something you want to see. It's sort of amazing that Tim Burton made 2 really good Batman movies that are kind of straightforward. Batman Returns gets kind of out there, but they're pretty straightforward and true to what the character mostly should be like.
Yeah.
It could have been probably a lot darker and weirder.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got like a toy when I was a kid, like a Spider-Man toy that they had painted just with black. And I remember as a kid, because I'd been watching the cartoons and I'd read probably a couple comics at that point, like, oh, but he's got, like, his suit is blue. But I remember looking at that toy and just being like, that's kind of cool, though. And then, like, in the Raimi movies, it gets, by Spider-Man 2, it gets kind of grayish, blackish. And so that's sort of always something I've imagined is like, it's a really, really dark blue or just a black. With like a blue,
for sure.
Blue shimmer, you know? And I think that really works with Spider-Man. They'll try and do that every once in a while with Superman, and I don't like it for Superman at all.
No, I don't think so.
I really like it on Spider-Man.
Yeah, with Superman, it's almost sacrilegious to give him any kind of darker shade, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I know people do like the Man of Steel suit, but it's so dark. It's Superman, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, they constantly try to make it like a deeper blue, and I know not everyone's going to want to go with like the baby blue, but that's Superman to me, is like a sky blue suit and just like crimson red. But I think about Spider-Man's blue kind of like I do like Batman's cape or something, where like the accents are going to be in blue, but I think about it as a black shape.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm also nervous about Shocker's suit here. I've got it fitting pretty loose on him, because I think that's how it looked in the early books. Kind of a loose little... What's he wearing? Is this like a romper? Like, what is this?
It's a singlet. It's like a wrestling singlet.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's probably
it's
better.
Very wrestling, I think.
Yeah, Herman would be mad that I called it a romper. Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. He would not approve
We'll
of
go with what
that.
you guys said. That guy's typing. That guy's typing so furiously right now.
Yeah.
Yep, we're going to have to employ a lot of whiteout on these arms. Not happy with these arms.
Oh, man.
Really?
I've
I
just
think they look
completely
pretty
shit.
sharp. Like you're actually highlighted on the video feed right now, Nate. I think those look really great. Like it does have like a realistic, like leathery kind of sheen to them.
Yeah, they look good to me.
Well, I'll do a little work on it, but I'll reassess as I tackle this leg that I don't want to draw.
I've been I've been just completely avoiding so far this building underneath him because we were saying before we started recording that I just avoid buildings so much.
Yeah,
I need to avoid.
I'm doing buildings right now, Johnny, and I'm kind of dreading it. Like I'm doing little windows right now.
Yeah.
It's kind of slapping.
Well,
The title of this episode is shit we don't want to draw.
yeah.
That would be
I
a
thought
funny
the amount of
episode,
pencil
actually.
would be enough. Oh yeah, just drawing shit we don't want to.
Yeah, what do you hate drawing? All right, we're doing it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna try and go with like a super dry brush and get this kind of gradation from white to gray to black. Let's see if it works. Not hating it. Not loving it.
So we kind of talked about this a little bit in our personal texting chats, but Spider-Man, pretty relevant in this conversation. Do you guys have a particular artist who you would say is like, oh, that's pretty much how I would imagine Spider-Man? Like Johnny, I know you had brought up Declan Shalvey when we were talking about how to tackle the webbing of the suit, and
yeah.
I think that was like a really great pull. Like for me, it's like imagining if Peter Parker had done that suit at home, like if he had built this or like stitched the suit together as like a high schooler, it would have like super asymmetrical like stitch work. You know, I thought that was like a really
Yeah,
great
for
pull.
sure. Yeah, I really like that. I like when I was younger, John Romita Jr. Spider-Man was for sure like the one where I was like, oh, that's like perfect. And I still think he does a great Spider-Man.
I was gonna say my favorite is John Romita Jr. without a doubt.
Yeah.
That's Spider-Man to me. The proportions are perfect. The way he draws anatomy, that's what I think of when I think about Spider-Man.
Yeah, for sure. No one who does like a really bulky, muscly Spider-Man. That's one big no for me.
Like I love the '90s cartoon, but oh my god, he's so big in that
He's
cartoon.
huge. I
He's
even thought
ripped.
that as a kid. Even when I was watching it as a kid, I was like, he's too big. Why is he this big? I don't understand it.
He's so big.
Yeah, that Spider-Man is jacked. He's got like Arnold Schwarzenegger's proportions.
Yeah, and he's meant to be what, 14?
Yeah, John Romita's a really good pull. Even as a kid, I had a book growing up that was one of those like like it was an educational brand, but they did a lot of license deals. And there was one that was like the history of Spider-Man. Like I'll see if I can find it and send it to you guys after the video.
Dude, I have that book.
You do? I think it's DK Books. Is that the one you're thinking of?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. But I remember seeing John Romita's art, or John Romita Jr.'s art for the first time in that book as a kid, and like, what a perfect choice for Spider-Man. You know, like perfectly cartoony, perfectly blocky, but also it has like a dramatic element to it. Like his visual storytelling isn't just like flat cartooning. Not that there's such a thing, but it has a lot of energy to it. Like he's a perfect Spider-Man artist.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because in interviews I've heard him say like in his mind he just wants to draw like his dad. And I'm like, is that true, or are you just saying that? Because your art could not be farther from what John Romita Sr. does.
Yeah, it's so different.
Like, I feel like he's just saying that to be self-deprecating or to, give a shout-out to his dad or whatever, because I'm like, your stuff's amazing, and it doesn't look anything like John Romita Sr.
Yeah.
That's an odd. I'm surprised he would have said that out of like I agree with you. Probably like to pay respect to his dad, or um, it could honestly be like his own inability to like accept like he's in the same career as his father. He's done the same characters as his father. Um, there's something very probably mentally taxing to do that. And not compare yourself to your father.
Like I think about like the Kubert dynasty a lot.
Yeah.
They're just every generation, is comic book artists because like Joe Kubert is obviously just a fucking legend, and Andy and Adam are amazing. Adam Kubert does one of my favorite Superman books. He did Last Son with Jeff Johns and Richard Donner, the fucking director of Superman from '78, and I fucking love that story. And I love his Superman because it's sort of like it's sort of like off the wall a little bit from like what regular Superman books look like. And now like I guess Emma Kubert is coming up in the industry. I don't remember who she belongs to, if she's Andy or Adams. Talking about them like they're people I know. They're not at all. But yeah, that's sort of crazy that like this family is just like, no, we all do comics. That's the family trade.
Yeah.
I respect that though, because this is a trade. It's not like I'm trying to think like blacksmithing. Like it's not not that blacksmithing is easy. That was like the first medieval like family lineage job I just thought of. Like it could be like a cobbler, it could be anything, but there's an element to there's a conceptual element to this craft. It's not just drawing; it's drawing with narrative purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's super hard to teach. Not that I've really ever given it a solid go, but I've talked to people about like sequential art before, and it's kind of a weird thing that you kind of, at least for me, like I feel like I could never like teach at like the Kubert School or whatever, because I don't. Maybe it's because I'm not good enough at it, but I don't know that I could teach this. And we were talking about the flights earlier. And I feel a little weird about like getting on. I don't want to think about it like a tutorial, because I don't know that I'm someone that should be teaching anyone how to do this stuff. I'm just going to kind of get on and talk about like how to use a brush or whatever. But I am excited just to talk. I do like talking about it.
Yeah, I think it also, like, having only drafted the first flight so far, like I haven't recorded anything dialogue-wise yet, it really made me contemplate what I was doing in my own art. Like, even though these are tips that I was like, here are some helpful tips that might help you in your art, just actually writing it down and thinking about it in my own personal perspective was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Like, who am I to tell you how to develop an art style?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not published.
It's
I'm
weird.
not a teacher. I'm not professionally trained to teach. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a weird thing to think about teaching.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to do for my flight. I don't know, because I don't know what I can tell other people.
Yeah, I am excited about that concept, though. I don't know if you want to like talk about it a little bit, Mike, like on the show.
Yeah. I'm cool to talk about it. Yeah. So the basic idea was to, as opposed to this longer form content, so whether this video goes up in its entirety and it's a longer call, or whether or not I edit it down to something more akin to like an hour to an hour and a half, the flight's idea is to provide content for viewers that is smaller to digest, but also covers more specifically like a personal take on a subject matter in art specifically. So I know the first one that I had drafted and briefly hinted at a moment ago was a video talking about developing your artistic style, which is something I've struggled with for years, having gone through phases where I've mimicked other creators and wanted to emulate their style.
Oh yeah,
it's such a difficult thing to come to grasp with, of who you are as a visual creator. That was something I wanted to at least give my take on, even if it's not the most educated or professionally articulated concept. It was something that I thought was important for anybody who might catch this channel and be an up and coming artist like we are to think about, because it's advice that I would have wanted to hear.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to be listening in on all of your flights, and I'm going to be picking up stuff myself, to be honest.
Oh, I'm going to ignore yours, Johnny.
Yeah. I would advise you to be honest. I already said I don't even know what I'm going to do for it.
No, I think it's a really good idea. I love the name Flight, too. I think I said that earlier. I love the name Flight. I think that's really clever as like a little sample of like what the main podcast is or what we individually have to offer. Really great idea. So listen to everyone but Johnny's.
Yeah, they're all going to be great except for Johnny's.
I'm going to work so fucking hard at it now. God, even as I say that, I'm not. I know I'm not even.
You're not even going to try it. So
I don't know.
Here, I'll throw out a flights question of sorts to you, Johnny, and Nate. You can also answer this. But one of the things I was approaching with my work with this piece with Spider-Man was, how am I going to shade him in the red areas of his suit? Do you guys feel that...
In the red area?
Yeah, do you guys feel that... I mean, I've seen a lot of Spider-Man art, and Nate, you're actually maybe even subconsciously or consciously, I'm not sure, doing it in your piece where you're not doing heavy black areas in the red of Spider-Man's suit.
Yeah, I don't...
picked up on, you know?
Yeah, I don't do it.
Like, most artists don't do it. Like, it's almost like the element of a suit that you just leave as is. But it works really well.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly that. I would not be shading it at all. You just leave that for the colors. I would do.
Yeah, it's so busy with the webbing. I just don't do it. Every once in a while, I'll add some detail if it needs it, but generally, I guess as a rule, I just don't.
Yeah, I would not be adding any shading to it.
Which of you guys just mentioned that? I think because I was thinking about that when I approached the piece. I was like, oh, that's something I want to ask, because I couldn't even fathom why someone wouldn't approach shading in that area. But I wasn't sure which of you guys just brought this up, but it's so busy with the webs. I never even thought about that. The costume itself is so complicated visually that to add more visual complexity to it would almost pull away from it, you know?
Yeah, I don't think I'm good enough.
Exactly.
To not just muddy it up if I started adding rendering to the form underneath that webbing. I think, like Johnny said, leave that to the colorist, or Mike, if you said it, that's your job. And if I color this piece, I might do a little bit, but maybe not even then.
Well, that's it. I think either leave it to the colorist, or like graphically, I think it's just something that works really well if you just leave it where everything else is.
Absolutely.
Like it just looks really good. It's similarly, you can do the same thing for the blue. I know you said like leaving it, like having black instead of the blue, but that you can like pick aspects of the color. Like you could not do any ink rendering on the blue as well. I think Spider-Man's costume is so good for that, because you can pick something where you're just like, I'm not going to shade that. Like this color, I'm just going to leave to the colorist. And it just graphically looks great.
It's funny.
Yeah.
I have a friend. Oh, sorry, Nate, you go.
I was just going to say, I blacked out that leg. I fucked it up when I tried to render it. So blacked it out. There's a little bit of and that's it. And viewers, that's how this stuff is done.
Nate, I'm gonna defend you on that choice, because I have your piece focused in on the screen right now for anybody watching to check out. But when you think about it in terms of structurally, Spider-Man's upper torso is overlapping that leg. from whatever light source is coming in from above.
Yeah.
So I think it
Yeah.
looks totally natural to be so heavily shaded.
Yeah, it was going to be mostly black anyway, from what I had planned. But there was a little bit more of this was in white. But you know what? Didn't work. And I am happier with it now. I think that it is just more of a black shape. I think subconsciously I knew that's what I was going to do anyway, so I didn't really worry about it when I was penciling. Promise I know what I'm doing most of the time.
Johnny, I'm gonna zoom in on yours too. Do you want to show everybody what you're doing with the building right now?
Okay, yeah. So at the moment, I was gonna say earlier, I penciled out the building like so roughly. I just did a really vague grid. That is not actually. That's nothing. That's just a load of different lines. And I was just like, yeah, that looks kind of right perspective wise. And it wasn't until I got to inking it that I was like, shit, I don't know what I'm doing here. So you are watching me just struggle through it, and I'm getting somewhere. I think maybe it's been tough, but I'm getting there. I think. Hang on.
I think it looks pretty good.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think that
cheers.
works really well.
With the light that you've got on his form, I think it's working really good. It looks really dynamic.
Yeah, and I think I'm just gonna get like blacker as the building goes higher.
Yeah, yeah.
He's like
I'm digging
going
it.
towards the light, so that'll make it easier. I'm on the difficult bit right now. We're just like right next to him, and I'm just having to figure out these sloppy lines that I've drawn. But it's going okay. It's a process, but I'm happy with the figure. I think that's gone pretty good.
Yeah, it's looking good, man.
Yeah, it's creepy.
Yeah. That's what I want.
Actually, I think your inclination to do that kind of feathering for your shading, I think works really well for Venom in particular, because it almost is like a flesh, like muscly texture. If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah,
I think
that's
that
kind
works
of what
really
I've been
well.
trying for. Yeah, I think maybe I pick, and subconsciously, I think I pick characters that are going to work for that, like feathering. I would like to maybe one week get like a character picked for me, so that I can't like cheat my way out of it.
Well, I was gonna say, this just popped into my head. Have you ever drawn Dead Man?
Oh
No, I
that'd be
haven't.
Cool.
I would love
Man,
to.
I haven't. That would be fun.
That's a character that I really enjoy. My second comics, not pitch, my second set of sample pages that I ever sent to publishers was a Dead Man story. Really
man.
love that character, because he is sort of a blank canvas for like, do you want to do him like he would appear on Super Friends? Not that I don't know if he ever appeared on Super Friends, but or do you want to do him as like this weird horror hero?
Yeah.
So much with him.
Did you see Raphael Albuquerque's Batman Black and White story that he
No,
has Dead Man in? He goes for a really he goes for what I think you're on about, where it's like there's like a lot of musculature, and like the red part of his costume is like anatomy. It's like a person who's been skinned. Is really, really cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to.
I love
that.
Raphael Albuquerque. I don't think I've mentioned him on the show yet, but he's
fantastic. He's an incredible
Oh,
talent. Have you guys seen or have you guys read Huck with Mark Miller?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my God, that
yeah.
book's so visually great. Albuquerque's work
Yeah,
is so
it's
good on that.
Yeah, he's one of those artists that I discovered when I was probably like an older teenager. That I was just like, oh shit, here we go. This is it.
Yeah. My mum for my birthday bought me American Vampire,
Yeah.
the first one, and she was just like, she bought it for me because she was like, we like vampires, and I know you like comic book artists, and this guy's second name is Albuquerque, which I think is really cool. And she's like, so I hope you like it. And I was just like going through, I was like, fuck, Mum, you've nailed it with this one. The artist is incredible. And so from there, that was like a bonding point between the both of us. She was always just like, oh, is that Mr. Albuquerque? I was like, yeah, that's the guy.
That's him.
Yeah.
That's
love
sweet
that.
though. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that was really nice.
I have a pretty similar story. When I was in high school, my grandma for one of my birthdays, bought me. It was like a 6-issue run, which is super similar story. She was like, "You like Batman and Superman, and you like, horror stuff. You like vampires and shit." She didn't say and shit, but
You're a tough grandma.
There was I don't remember at all who wrote it, but there was a 6-issue story. It was called like Batman and Superman versus vampires and werewolves.
Oh man.
I think that's what it was called. I have them in my bedroom right now. But it was the goofiest story that was the most like, I don't know, like weird. I don't know. There was like an animated movie that was like the Batman fights Dracula. It was like that, but in comic book form. The writing I remember not being spectacular, but that introduced me to the artist. Do you guys know Tom Mandrake?
No.
No.
He has like a super loose sort of ink style that I love, and he like it almost seems like he barely draws the things, kind of like Frank Miller or Sienkiewicz will like barely draw things sometimes. He kind of He kind of does that, and I remember even as a teenager, I was like, this guy's way too good of an artist to be drawing this book. But that's why I liked those stories. I don't remember at all what they were about, what goofy premise there was about the undead coming to attack Metropolis or whatever. But the art was great.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm gonna have to check it out.
That's always cool when you're not expecting something, especially with comics, of course. And it just kind of revolutionizes what you were thinking of that whole character or that whole medium, for that matter. Like Mouse was one of those for me. I remember getting that as a gift and being like, oh, I'm not really a fan of like this underground kind of art style. And then I read the book, and it's, to this date, the only comic that's ever made me cry. And it's such a powerful book, and like the visual style of the book isn't something you would normally get out of a Marvel or a DC, but oh my god, it's incredible. Like it just perfectly encapsulates the mood that book is trying to tell.
Yeah, for sure.
But like same thing, like that was a gift, and when I read it, it just kind of like blew my mind of how different that book was from everything else I was reading at the time.
Yeah.
I think I told you guys this before. I met Art Spiegelman, who wrote and drew Mouse, for the listeners and all that, if you don't know. Also, definitely read Mouse if you haven't. I met him when I was in college, and I got to sit down like at a lunch thing with him and talk to him a little bit. It's when I was a political cartoonist. He told me to stop drawing Donald Trump so much. I did not listen. But, people would come up and ask him like, hey man, loved Mouse. What gave you the idea to draw like Jews during the Holocaust as mice? And, you could just tell after 3 decades or whatever of getting that question from people that just casually maybe looked at the book and didn't at all understand it. He was nice enough to answer like a real answer, but you could just tell he was like, did you read the book? Did you fucking understand it? Can you get out of my face and eat my Caesar salad?
Yeah. What a dumb question to ask, to be honest.
I sat with him for like an hour, and swear to God, like 3 people asked him that.
Oh my God.
Like, how do you not, like, come on. Like, you didn't read it. You didn't understand it. You had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, why would you start the conversation with loved Mouse and then just be like, so what was up with the basic concept of it? Like,
like what inspired the mice?
Yeah. What made you write it in the way that you did? That's pretty pretty surface level but profound. What made you do that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he was I think it was when Meta Mouse came out, which was like about him writing Mouse. So it was really funny that he was getting these questions that he kind of addresses having written Mouse in Meta Mouse. It was sort of like this weird perfect thing of just like watching him get really frustrated. And he was a really nice guy. Like I kind of came up to him like as a fan, like I was like a 22-year-old cartoonist that was like, "Hey, love your work," and he was like, obviously,
Yeah.
Of course you do.
"You're
Of course you do.
welcome."
Look at you.
But yeah, he was really nice. He was kind of gracious, you know, because everyone in the room was just like, "Hey, like, why are you here of all places in Lubbock, Texas?" But yeah, really fun experience meeting like one of the greats, you know,
Yeah.
in Lubbock of all places. If anybody knows anything about Lubbock, there's not that much happening there.
So that kind of brings up an interesting conversation point about Spiegelman in particular, but underground comics as a whole. It's such a deviation from mainstream comics. It's fascinating when something like Mouse or Ninja Turtles, for that matter, really breaks through from what, in its definition, is underground. It's subculture. It's niche. Really comes to the front of culture like that. Like Mouse is one of those pinnacle comics. You know, it's one of those comics that's taught in literature courses. You know, it's pretty crazy that something that was considered underground when it was being published has had such a profound impact on an entire medium. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's the thing that unfortunately like mainstream comics like would never make. Not that there's not good comics coming out of like Marvel and DC and all that, because like I think he's probably gonna hate me for this, but I want to say like he didn't even hate like Dark Knight Returns, Art Spiegelman, that is. But yeah, comics are like this weird thing where they kind of do what they know is going to work, and if you want sort of more literary or thoughtful pieces, you do have to go outside of mainstream comics. Much like movies, you know, you're not always going to get a profound, you know, artsy or like well-written movie from a major studio.
Yeah.
Someone had
Completely
actually
making up.
Someone had actually recently compared my art style to being underground, and I was kind of
Oh, really?
shocked. Yeah, I was shocking, but I ended up taking it as a compliment, which I know they were intending it as. But at first I was like, really? That's kind of bizarre. But then as I like kind of thought about it and like looked more into like what they were speaking on in terms of context, I was like, you know what? I can understand that. Like there's a like a scratchiness, like a less of a refined nature to a lot of that art movement in comics, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it depends on the artist you go for, but like sometimes I found like I got really into like quite a few indie comics like more recently because like some of the art is just more out there and they're just trying different shit and some of it is really really cool. Like I spoke about I still don't know his first name. Gippy, he's like Italian I think, who did Land of the Suns. That is really really cool. Ooh, I'm getting somewhere here.
Yeah, I don't know that name or the title. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, me neither.
It's really good. It's drawn. The Land of the Suns is drawn like entirely in biro, I think, something similar, and it's all just like there's like one bit. There's one scene where it's like post-apocalyptic, and it's like these two suns, and it's like there's one scene that's entirely in like really really heavy rain, and he really like just in biro, just in like his quite simplistic style, really captures like the feeling of being in rain that's so heavy that it's like a fog and you can barely see through it and you can just see like features of people and then other than that it's just like vertical lines. It's really really good.
Interesting.
Do you guys ever feel like, and Johnny, I'm sure you'll agree with this, but as an American, sometimes I feel like European artists are just on a whole other level than people coming out of the United States. Sometimes I feel like
all the time.
either the education is better, or they take comics more seriously, or whatever it is. Because there are several like Italian artists that I'm like, holy shit, how did you?
Yeah,
How did you even come up with that like way to draw or paint or whatever?
And I don't even mean like Europe necessarily from like where I'm from, like UK Europe. There are some incredible UK artists, obviously. But like there's some Italian artists where you're right, it's because they're not in our eye as much, because they don't do the kind of comics that we look at. So they're new to me and I only discover them now. And some of the work is insane. Like it's just stylistically, a lot of the time it's so different as well that it's just incredible to see.
Yeah, it seems like just the decision making is completely different from what I'm like, what I would ever come up with.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't. Have you guys read any Dylan Dog?
Yes.
No.
I haven't really read any, but I follow a lot of the artists. And again, it's the same thing of like, the art is just insane.
Yeah, one of my favorites, I believe he's Italian. I think so. Is a guy named Andrea. I'm probably gonna butcher his name. I think his name's Andrea Cucci. I don't know if that's at all how you say his name.
Yeah, no, I know him. I'm similar with the pronunciation. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Oh fuck, he's so good, dude.
Yeah, he's incredible.
Like I don't know. He's one of those guys. He makes me mad how good he is. You can tell like Sienkiewicz was a big influence on him. Amongst
and he makes it look easy as well. He's one of those annoying ones.
And he's always changing a little, like just a little bit, the way he draws. I bought the book he did. Oh shoot, can't think of the title of it. It's Churchill something. But he drew it a few years ago. I bought it on Amazon, and he was like, "Oh, you bought my book?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's fantastic. I'm trying to learn as much as I can." And he goes, "Oh yeah, I really hate the way it looks. I hate the way I drew that book." And I was like, "Shut the fuck up, dude.
God.
You cannot the way this book looks, because I'm trying to learn everything that you did on it."
Yeah, that's crazy.
And he's a younger guy too. He's like 26 or 27, I think, which just even more angry.
Yeah,
that's so fascinating, because I was just talking to my girlfriend about that same context, about how I feel like I don't know a single artist who isn't like at least somewhat self-conscious about their work. Like I feel like every artist to some degree is like, it's pretty trash, and then everyone else is like, wow, that's incredible, and you're like, it's really not, you know?
Yeah,
I feel like every artist almost goes through that same notion.
Yeah, I hate it when like people will like. I mean, I like it; it's a very nice thing. But you'll get like some people who they'll find a couple of your pieces because you'll post something recent, and they'll start liking stuff further and further down. I start just feeling like it's nice of them, but I'm like, don't stop scrolling, please stop scrolling. I'm seeing you like older and older stuff. Please, just stop where you are right now.
Stop looking at that stuff.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was still there. Please stop.
But it's weird because like I'll never delete that stuff either.
Yeah, same.
It's like it just lives on Instagram, and I'm like, if I delete it, it's gone forever, and I hate it, and I never want to look at it, but I also never want to delete it.
Yeah, same. And there's some like drawings I did of like my girlfriend and stuff like that on there that are like really low down, and I'm like, I hate them. They're really bad, but like, it was nice. That time was nice, you know.
It's so funny. I delete everything. If I or at least I archive it specifically on Instagram, because you have that option. But yeah, no, I go in and I'm like, all right, that could be eliminated. That doesn't have to be seen. That I'm not proud of anymore. I go through and edit the shit out of my online presence when it's older work.
Maybe I should start doing that.
That's just me, though. I mean, I that's just me trying to be analytical of how I'm presenting myself. But I also think there's an important element of embracing, like, and showcasing specifically, like, on Instagram for, like, the purpose of this conversation, like, oh, this is where I was as an artist, but this is where I am now.
Yeah, showing the change. Yeah, for sure. I think that can be really important.
Oh, it's funny. It's like the post I was sending you guys yesterday about like going through my old portfolios and my old sketchbooks and like looking for old characters to do for a potential episode, and just seeing like work that I was cringing at so hardcore, you know, like pieces that I would never show anybody, like pieces I would never let see the light of day. But
Yeah.
but it's important to recognize that because you're gonna change so much over your artistic career. Um, like you can never just accept that you're like this is the only art I've ever made. You know, like you almost have to embrace
Yeah,
that. It's
exactly.
like oh I made some crass work at some points in my life.
Yeah, well, fucking everyone has, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Oh my
Paul
God.
said while he's working on Outcast that he like wanted someone to like read the whole run and notice like that he was using different tools depending on the issue or that the way he approached certain things changed because he's like I wouldn't want someone to read that whole book and just see the same thing. He's like, he worked on that book for years. He's like, I want
Yeah.
to get better over that time. And I totally agree with that, you know, and it sort of opened me up to the idea of like, it's okay if a book kind of changes as you go because you are
Yeah,
growing.
for sure. Yeah.
Because I kind of, before I heard him say that, had been in the mindset of like, okay, this book needs to look this way and I have to commit to this look. Even if it's something
It's a
that I don't
scary
really
thing.
that's so stupid now that I think about it.
Well, it's funny. That's something I
Yeah,
need
I
to
think it's
embrace right
the-
now because, like, in the pages I'm working on for my current book, like that's something that I'm struggling with to some degrees. I'm progressing so much quicker that I'm looking back at pages and going, all right, well, how do I conform to what I was doing, but keep it still honest to how I want to do this next page? You know what I mean? But
I think that's something everyone does. Yeah.
yeah,
But it is like Nate says, it's like it's the great thing about it is the medium is it's drawn by a person, and obviously it's going to change constantly, basically. And you should just, I think it's something you should just embrace.
Yeah, lean into it.
which is funny.
And it's hard to do. And I feel like myself, like I don't really, like I find myself kind of resisting that, but you know, it is sort of like the more honest approach to it is to lean into those changes and be okay with a book kind of deviating from choices you've made before that you're not happy with.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because there's also a bit of like doing comics where it's like we are working on deadline, and sometimes you just have to get something done.
Yeah, for sure.
And you might not be happy with it.
It's funny in the flights episode that I drafted, I have a big point about in terms of finding your own artistic style. There's a quote that I like that is you're an uncooked egg, and I think I've mentioned that to you guys before about how like
Yeah, you
like
said
on
that
the
to us before.
yeah like on the outside everybody else sees you as this polished thing, but on the inside you're still just this raw like ever changing swashing liquid, you know. And that's something that's so easy to say, but like anything else, taking your own advice is so difficult, you know, like accepting
Yeah.
that and embracing that. Like that's something I struggle with all the time is like even with this drawing right now, like anybody who's watching the video can tune in maybe 5 minutes earlier before I was making this decision with the work, but I was like looking at what I was doing with this background and thinking, where am I putting in these black areas? And kind of like thinking like, oh, will it like break the continuity of how I draw if I do this thing? But why does it matter? Just do it. Just try it. See if it works.
Yeah.
It's not beholden to what I've done before. It's its own drawing, you know? It has no master. Dobby has no master.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm like making up this brick wall right now, and it's gonna require a lot of revision, I think.
Nah, man, that looks sharp. That looks awesome. That looks so good.
But I also, like we've been talking
Oh
about,
man, yeah, that looks incredible.
I don't want to work on it too much because it doesn't matter as much as the figures, you know.
Yeah. Well, as we're saying this, I'm turning cross-eyed drawing stars. And I feel like I've been doing for like 5 hours now. This is insane. Why did I decide to do this?
Well, here I'll showcase your piece. You can zoom out. Get a fresh breath.
Okay. Here we go. So that's where I'm at now. So I still need to add a little bit of extra detail to the building, I think, because at the moment I'm cheating so much. But this is what I've been doing for the past while.
It looks great though. Like that sky looks very believable. Like it doesn't look like you were just like
Oh yeah?
spitting white all over that black area. Like it looks very accurate. Like it feels like you're actually looking at space.
Thank you. Yeah, it is literally just fucking just this all the time. I feel like there's so many people who must be like, they must also work on iPads, who are just like watching this probably and just tearing their hair out. Like, what are you doing? There's such a quicker way to do this. And there are like splatter brushes, but I don't really like using them for like stars. I like to do just hand dot it, but it's so time consuming and your eyes go so weird. It's making my eyes go so fucked up.
I'm sure there's like a little bit of you that's like, no, I don't want to just use like a brush to have this effect. You know, 'cause I'm like that. I'm like, if I can draw something, I want to hand draw it.
Yeah, literally. Like, I really like using the iPad, but I don't know whether I've mentioned before, but I literally only ever I just go Studio Pen on like the inking part and just put it on like a 2 usually or a 3, just really small. Because I still like it I don't use too many effects. I mean, they can work really well. Like Todd uses a lot of effects and it's really cool. But for me, I still like it to feel like I'm drawing.
Yeah, it's
and
something
I'm just doing everything by hand.
To get it to. I feel like there's such a cheap way to use them, and he uses them, I think, expertly. Even though I guess he hasn't been drawing digitally like super long. It seems a real inclination for it. I find myself overwhelmed by the options of digital drawing.
I think that's what's happened for me.
Yeah,
and I've like settled into a nice medium between drawing digitally and drawing traditionally. Like I will just use it as a way of like, yeah, it's great because on my big like spot black areas, I can just drag the black in. But then for stuff like this, I do like to draw it hand drawn because of how there's something that goes into it, how miserable I am drawing it right now. Just dotting in all of these stars. It's a labor of love. It's miserable and my eyes are going really weird, but that's part of it. It'll show at the end, hopefully.
That's how I feel about the buildings I'm doing right now. I'm just absolutely dreading doing all these windows and all these square shapes, but I'm doing it because I know I have to, and I know that I'm only going to be better for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a boring background episode of Ink Drink Think.
That could be a whole episode where we draw out, like, for example, like if you look at my piece, we just draw everything around the characters. Like we don't even touch the characters in the episode. Like just only focus on drawing the background.
Yeah, someone's like, "You've drawn Spider-Man. I'm tuning out."
They're like, "Oh man, I'm really looking for those skyscraper drawings that you guys are doing."
The rest of the people watching, you're the hardcore fans.
Yeah, I drew all of Venom first, and then every other part of the background is so boring. I really made a mistake there. This is not interesting to watch.
Well, it's funny, Johnny, with the first episode that we have up on the channel too. You were doing the Kirby dots for your Silver Surfer piece, so recorded wise, everybody only knows you for doing these like meticulous little details.
Yeah.
It would be so great though, like, if there's somebody out there that's like, no, like I want to see how you draw the buildings or whatever, like that would be so great. And if you are out there, we appreciate you. And if you leave a comment, we'll like that a lot more than the guy who was angry typing earlier because we don't know anything about Spider-Man.
But we love him too.
Thanks for watching. We don't love you, that guy.
we love you, anal retentive Spider-Man fan.
Mike loves you. I do not.
We appreciate your contributions.
Follow me on Instagram. Comment on all my posts. Thank you so much.
That's the key, man. You got to get engagement.
That's what, and I think we talked about this before, where it's like there's people out there that, you know, are probably really skilled artists, but there are people that just know how to use social media, and that's such an impressive skill. I think now it's something you got to know how to do, and it's something that I definitely struggle with.
Yeah, because you were being very diplomatic there, but equally, I think there's a lot of artists who are not very strong artists who are really, really famous, just because they know how to work that
We all know who you're talking about. Todd Blackwood.
Yeah, have you guys seen this Todd guy? What the fuck?
Yeah.
He's gonna watch
Has
this
he
episode
colored
later.
something? I don't fucking know. I don't give a fuck. Oh my god.
It's funny. I was just thinking about an artist that we've talked about before in that same regard of like clearly knows how to use social media properly. I was listening to Cartoonist Kayfabe, and they were talking about just a shout out another podcast you should listen to. They were talking about I think it was in their Mignola episode. I can't remember which one I was listening to, but they brought up the point of how you either do something right and just lock into it and go, okay, this is me for the rest of my career. Like, this is what's getting the likes. I'm going to do this to get the likes, you know? Or you take that moment and you go, I'm either going to do the same thing or I'm going to push in an entirely different direction, or I'm going to try something completely different with the next one, you know? And I think that definitely, not that you, like, that defines you indefinitely as an artist, not to say you can't, like, grow from that, but I think that really does speak volumes of like why you're in the craft, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it sounds really simple, but like there's real artists, and then there's, I guess, maybe enthusiasts. I don't know, whatever you want to call them, and which is also fine. I mentioned on the last episode, like, fan art versus real art, and I was a little worried how that came off. I don't mean that like people that just do it for fun are bad or not doing the right things, because that's amazing. But then there are people that do have these like weird motives where it's like, no, I can do this thing kind of half-assed, and you know, if they find success with it, it's just a little weird, and it doesn't really sit right with me. And yeah, I mean, I'm not calling anybody out here, because I mean,
it's all right. You can say it to my face.
Yeah, it's Mike Pickard. That's who I was talking about. But yeah, there's like a weird thing where it just doesn't sit right with me, and it's probably just because like I have 1,000 followers, and you know, like I've been working really hard. But you know, it's just when you see someone with like millions of followers or whatever that is talented, but you can tell is sort of like they're fine with what they're doing, and they're not growing, and they're not making choices anymore or whatever. It's weird. I don't want to say it's bad.
Yeah, I mean,
it's weird.
Because I like to see a follower or like just someone on this Instagram who like, there was someone, again, not naming names, but there's someone I saw recently who like followed me, and I looked at their work at first and I was like, oh, that's like, okay, it's not that great. Like some parts are off. And I like looked and they'd like listed their age, and I was like, oh shit, this person is like something like 14. And I was like, this person is like way beyond where I was at 14.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that's
yeah.
really nice to see. And it's like someone who's got like a passion there. I would prefer to see someone who is not as technically skilled, but is like working on it and clearly like fucking loves it, than someone who is just like figured it out. You know, they've just figured out a way to do it
a cheat code.
Yeah, exactly. It just doesn't sit right with me.
And it's sort of fantastic, like when somebody you can tell knows that they still have a long way to go, but they're not afraid to like show off what they've done. 'Cause
Yeah,
I feel
yeah,
like when I was young, I would like show my parents what I'd drawn, but I was always so scared to show anybody. Even in college, I was so scared to show like other people in like my art classes and stuff because I'm like, it's not good. I'm not 100% happy with it,
yeah,
and so I would never really show anybody a lot of what I did. And I feel like that's never the way to go because I've always been super scared of like feedback, which is like a really bad habit of mine. Because I know, like Mike, you've reached out to people before, and I think Johnny, you said you have as well.
yeah.
About like, hey, take a look at my stuff. Like that's something that I'm so scared of. Like I do
It
not
is
want to.
terrifying.
Oh, it's a nightmare. It's so
Yeah, it's really
nerve-wracking.
scary.
Because I don't want someone to be like, yep, you've got a long way to go, which is like something that I know is true, but it would it would suck to have someone look at you and go like, hey, you're on the right track, but you got some more incubating to do. I'd be like, shit.
Yeah.
But you have to have that. You have to have someone be like, you're almost there. You're not done. You're almost there. But
Yeah, I mean, I said to you guys before, I won't name names, but I had like a prominent artist who I like messaged to be like, and like, at the time, my work, I hadn't posted any recent work, and I just messaged them along with a lot of other artists to be like, hey, I really want to get cover work. Do you have any advice how you do it? Like, how do you actually get that kind of work? And they like looked at the work I had on my Instagram, and they were just like, okay, you're not, basically don't do it. They were like, especially right now with like the like quarantine and everything, they were like, you're not going to get anywhere with this. It's definitely not right for like mainstream work. And I was like, oh, okay, well, like I've been working on maybe like more recent work where I've upped the realism a little bit and like my style has changed a little bit and it's a bit more right for mainstream. And then they actually like, I sent them a piece and they like responded suddenly, instead of just being like, don't do it. They just gave me an enormous list of things that I needed to change and that weren't working on the piece. And like after maybe a half hour of being like, fuck, this is really horrible. He was really mean about the piece. I was just like, wait, no. He's changed from saying don't do it to giving me a load of pointers on what I should change about that piece. And then he ended the comment with like, I think you should redo this piece, send it back to me, and you'll be amazed at how much better it is. And I did, and it looked so much better. So yeah, that was it's scary asking for criticism from like really prominent artists, but it pays off.
Yeah, it's also so hard to just to swallow, you know? It's so hard to accept like somebody who you admire, like of course like everybody has this fantasy in their head that they're gonna walk through the doors and Stan Lee's gonna greet you and be like, you're in, kid, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. I can't believe we haven't discovered you before.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like it's the fantasy we all share, but the reality is it's such a cutthroat business that if you are trying to do it that way in terms of getting work like mainstream, like you really have to like listen to that advice and take it because they've been there too, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That was it. My first there was that half hour where I was like, you know, like really upset, and I was like, fuck, they didn't like, this artist didn't like love it. And I like had to step back and be like, okay, well, what were you expecting? Were you expecting this like basically world-class artist who can be like, wow, you're better than me? Like, that's so unrealistic and stupid. Like,
right.
Johnny, I can tell you that. I'll tell you right now. You are better than me. You have a really great understanding of value. No, I'm
definitely not, man. I have a good understanding of cheating. I can tell you that.
It's so hard, though. It's so hard to eat that criticism.
Yeah, it literally, I had like I said, like half an hour of being like, fuck, I'm not the best artist in the whole world. I haven't immediately blown this guy away with like what I've done. And I like took another look at like the message he sent, and I was like, actually, this is fucking incredible. Like I've actually got criticism, and like he gave me like a bullet pointed like specific list of like change this, redo this. And so I literally just scrapped the whole piece, went back at it, and just wrote out what he'd written in like another bullet pointed list on like just a handwritten note that I had next to me while I was drawing. And I was just like, okay, just fucking one by one go through everything. And it made it so much better.
That's awesome though. Like it's great to see like within yourself to be like, because I I applaud you for it, because I definitely struggle with it. Like I can't. It's so hard to accept it and not be like, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. Like I know what I'm doing.
It is tough.
Like I applaud you for that,
Yeah,
because
for
it's
sure.
so hard to take that, like, and like I was saying, to eat it and then digest it, to literally
Yeah.
take it in its truest form and be like, okay, I know what they meant by it, and how am I going to use it to grow?
Yeah, it is tough to do. I think you do have to take like a second, maybe like take a day to yourself after you hear like criticism from a professional, maybe even a couple of days, and just like, you know, well up a little bit, accept that the whole thing that you had of you being the best artist in the whole world, and you know everyone who like takes one look at your art is like, fuck, this person's incredible. That's not true, and you just kind of digest that, swallow it, and you just come back at it like, okay, here we go. I'm being mature again now.
Yeah. I had an artist that I really like and admire. One time, I like commented, I think on like one of his Instagram posts or something, like, "Oh, I really like this" or something like that. And he follows me too, and he was just like, "Yeah, I'm glad you like it, and you're getting better," which is such a big compliment from him. But I was like, "Fuck." He said I'm getting better. Like it seemed like such a weird, like,
Passive
well, and
aggressive.
yeah, I didn't take it probably the way he meant it. He seems like a really nice guy, but I was like, damn, like way to take it down, dude. Which is ridiculous because it is such a nice thing to say. But I was like, oh my god, kind of like you said, Johnny.
the same as you.
I'm not the best at this.
Yeah, exactly. Like when you're younger, you just have this idea that like your parents tell you you're like incredible, so you're just like, fuck, I'm the best in the world. Amazing. That's great. I guess I barely need to work.
That's like, so the story that always cracks me up is kind of like the same ego filled like, what do you mean I'm not the greatest of all time kind of story. Is like, I was in like 6th grade, and like 2 of my teachers like told my parents, they're like, we think Mike's gonna be very successful and famous. I think he's really gonna make it. This is 6th grade, mind you. I was like, what, 12? You know what I mean?
Oh my god.
Like, and so like in my 12-year-old brain, I'm like, they know what they're talking about. I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna be the one.
I always
You know what
felt that way.
Yeah. All of my life, I've only been brought up by others, never put down. You know, like,
Yeah. Yeah, I've had friends tell me before, like, "Hey, don't forget about us when you're famous."
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of like, name a cartoonist you like, name an illustrator you like,
Yes.
you know, name what you think I'm gonna become, and they're like, "Oh, well, you know." I'm like, "No, I know because it's what I do, but like, I am never gonna be famous. You don't understand what it is that I do. I'm
Yeah.
never gonna be famous."
Come on,
Yeah,
tell me
no.
who's famous.
Yeah.
What's funny,
Famous.
like, I was just talking to someone about that, about how if I ever wanted to be famous, I'd want to be comic book famous. Because if you think of like Mark
Yeah.
Miller, who is inarguably one of the most financially successful comic book writers of all time, if not the most, right?
hmm
Nobody knows who he is. He can go to
Yeah.
a grocery
Yeah.
store. No one knows who the hell he is. But if he goes into a comic book convention, people are going to gawk because they're going to go, that's Mark Miller. He wrote The Ultimates. He wrote Jupiter's Legacy. Like, everybody's going to know who he is and how successful he is at what he does. You know? Like, that's the
Yeah.
kind of fame you, like, I think people like us, like in this comic book field, like really aspire towards, because where like I want to be recognized in my field, but I don't want to be recognized all the time.
Yeah, it's the best of everything, isn't it? Because you can just pick it up whenever. You just
Yeah.
go to events like that, and you're like, okay, there we go. Now I'm famous, and then you just go back to not being recognized whenever you want.
Yeah. You know, because, like, I mean, people don't know who Jack Kirby is, you know? People don't know who, like, John Romita is. And that, I mean, those like, are some of my heroes, and, like, if I could ever meet them, I would just, you know, shit myself.
Yeah.
But if I go and ask my neighbor, like, oh, hey, like, what do you think about Jack Kirby? He'd be like, who is that?
Yeah.
Who? I don't know who that is. Is he like a politician? Like, what's happening? And I do think that is sort of like a weird ideal level of fame, where like you have a following and you have fans, but you can also go to Target and just pick up cat food. You know, that's
yeah.
Yeah.
like if I want to go to Chili's, I can go to Chili's.
My one, that's a great point, because like my one college roommate used to work at a Target, and he messaged us all one day and was like, guys, you won't believe who just walked in. We're like, who? He was like, Ariana Grande. And we're like, bull, no way. And lo and behold, he took a picture for us. She was there, you know?
Whoa.
And so like we were like, dude, are you gonna talk to her? Like, you gonna go like walk up or whatever? He's like, no, of course I'm not. Like, I'm a Target employee. Like, just,
No.
like I'm working. I'm not just gonna like bother this person while they're shopping, you know? Like, and that's what I'm sure what everybody else in the store was doing to her. Whereas my friend had the wherewithal to be like, I'm gonna leave this person alone. I'm not gonna bother them.
Yeah.
Well, it's interestingly the same with a lot of my like comic book like hero. I was talking to my girlfriend about this. It was after I listened to the Mignola episode of the Drink and Draw, and he said like the same thing I'd been thinking a lot. Like if I ever met like, or if I ever was in the same room as Mignola, and someone was like, "Oh hey, shit, Mignola's over there," I would not go and speak to him. There's no fucking way.
Right.
Because what would I say that like this is what Mignola says, and I completely agree. Like, what would I say that's different to what everyone tells him at stuff like this? Like, oh, what he's an influence to me. Yeah, get in the fucking queue. Like, oh, he's really good at drawing. Yeah, he already fucking knows. Like, there's just nothing new I would tell him.
Yeah, I was at the Texas State Fair when I was like a freshman in college, and we were just like hanging out, eating just like, you know, all the fried food, fried Oreos, fried ice cream, fried cheesecake, all of the stuff, just getting real fat. And I look up at like some fried something, and there's an actor who's like walking up, like with his family, he's like with his wife and kids. He was on Friday Night Lights, and like I think he was in Transformers too. His name's Glenn Morshower, I think is the name. Shit. And I looked at him and I was like, oh shit, that's Landry's dad from Friday Night Lights. And I'm looking at him and he looked me in the eyes and he recognized that I recognized him. And he kind of gave me this look like, no. And I was like, yeah, you got it, dude. You got it. I'll tell the story that I saw you, but yeah, I'll leave you alone. Because like I said, he was with his family. He's just at the fair. I wasn't gonna bug him, you know?
Yeah, that's
that
what
makes
I
me
usually
think of
go for.
like Dark Knight Rises.
You know?
At the end with Alfred, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I saw Ricky Gervais one time when I was out with my girlfriend.
Shit.
And I opted
That's
for
cool.
the thing I usually go for now if I see someone who I recognize from shit is you just give them a nod. That's what I go for.
Yeah,
you do the
and
Alfred.
I give
You
them
do
a
the
smile
Alfred.
and a nod. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just said that, right? Yeah, I do that. I just give them a little smile and a nod. Where I'm like,
Yeah.
I know,
All right,
but I'm not
Master
going to... Because also, if they're like quite famous, like Ricky Gervais, especially like if you're in the UK, like, I mean, I know you guys know who he is, but like we were just in this little fucking town. And so if I like went up to him and was like, hey, can I have your autograph? Suddenly it's fucking everyone around him asking for his autograph. You just fucking ruined that guy's day. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, it's super weird how like famous people just like pop up every once in a while. You're
Yeah.
like, hey, what are you doing here? My old roommate in college ran into. He was like at GameStop at the mall in Lubbock, at the South Plains Mall, and he gets home. We were living in the dorms, so we lived in just like a tiny bedroom, just the two of us. Very adorable. And he was like, "Hey, guess who I ran into at GameStop?" And I was like, "I don't know who." And he was like, "Waka Flocka Flames at GameStop." And I was like, "Dude, what?" He's like, "No, swear to God." He says he's doing a show here. I was like, "And here in Lubbock?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "And he's just at GameStop?" He's like, "Yeah, I think he's buying like GTA 5." I was like, "What?"
That's amazing.
That's hilarious. Yeah,
I'm doing a rare thing, by the way. I'm actually coloring on the show.
Yeah, I
In
saw
fact, I
that.
haven't colored any of the pieces I've done yet. I'm giving it a go.
Yeah, I mentioned to Mike that I might color this, and I'm not. I'm not going to.
I finished it earlier than I thought I would, so I was like, well, I might as well. Even if I don't end up putting them on the air. You know, who knows if they actually look good enough to post, but why not give it a go while we're all here?
No, that looks solid, Johnny. I'm very into it.
Oh, thanks. Cheers.
I think Venom's also one of those characters
Doing
that
okay.
visually I think is like a perfect match for your art style. You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
wouldn't necessarily pair like Frank Miller with Charlie Brown as much as I now want to see that. But
Yeah, I want to see that too now.
yeah.
But yeah, I did definitely like. It was definitely. I didn't consciously pick him because, like I said, my thought process was being like, well, I've never like thought Venom was as cool as everyone else thinks, so why don't I try my hand at that? But I definitely think subconsciously there was something there where I was like, okay, well, I could do all this like black feathering that works perfectly for how I ink anyway. I think that just ended up happening naturally. It's been fun.
Yeah, I can say I've never drawn Shocker before, but I've actually really enjoyed it today.
I never have either, yeah. A lot of Spider-Man.
Like an hour ago. An hour ago, when I finished drawing Shocker, I was really enjoying it, and now I'm just drawing pipes.
Yeah, why did we all leave it till last?
That's how I usually draw this stuff, though. Like when I do like a drawing outside of this is I draw the figures, make sure those are looking good, and then I just go in on the background.
Yeah.
That's
I
how I
want to
handle
try
this
and not
piece.
do that because it becomes like a slog for me, and I'm not looking forward to anything about the piece anymore.
Right.
I don't know, not too much, but a little bit.
That's kind of what we were talking about. I don't know if we were recording yet, but about like making the backgrounds like fun to draw. Like I finally got to where like I draw things in a way where they're fun, and it just was mostly me deciding not to just like use a straight edge for every piece of architecture, or go in and like render with a brush on some of this stuff. It's like I can draw this like I do a human figure. There's no reason that like a building should be drawn in a completely different way that I would like the superhero or their detective or whoever it is.
Yeah.
Because when I was in college and doing like life drawing classes and stuff, doing still lives or whatever, never use a straight edge. I'd be drawing cubes and lamps and whatever. Never use a straight edge. And the drawings looked fantastic. Like, why am I, when I go into a drawing in a comics setting, breaking out every ruler and French curve that I own? You don't have to do that.
Part of me also, I kind of wonder if that's ingrained in us because of people who are non-artists, like we touched upon it a little bit of that notion of somebody's going to look at your art and go, well, they didn't pay that much attention to the background, so like I'm not really into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas in
Right.
reality, like they might have put so much conceptual thought into how they were approaching the background, but it's minimalist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's like it's such a difficult thing to balance of like taking that with a grain of salt, you know, like being like, okay, like I know what they were trying to say or like what they meant by it, but like accepting that like you can do this however you want to do it. It doesn't really have to be based off of what other people are projecting onto you, you know?
Yeah.
I think Kirby's
Yeah,
actually
just
a
in the
really good example of that.
Sorry, go on.
Oh, sorry. I was just pointing out that like I think Kirby's a really great exemplifying factor in that of like Jack Kirby's like blocky figures that he was doing circa like Fantastic Four and Avengers and whatnot. Like I'm sure there were tons of critics who were like, I hate this. Like what are you doing? You know? And
Yeah,
there still
yeah.
are, but
Yeah.
like he just did it the way he wanted to do it, and he went on to inspire countless generations of cartoonists.
Yeah, and a lot of times the artists that, you know, get like the bigger Marvel DC work, you know, the more house style stuff, they are probably going to please more people, but it is like a little less appealing to me at least, where if I kind of know what to expect from you and I've seen it in other artists, I'm a little less likely, not always, but a little less likely to latch onto it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we touched upon it a little bit of like that might have been before recording actually, but the notion of you're clearly great at rendering and you're clearly fantastic in terms of recognizing and illustrating realistic art, but is it any better? Like what's the value in it? Like is it like narratively any better than like Andrew McLean
Right.
or Mike Mignola? Like what's the benefit of doing it that way, you know?
Yeah.
I should be using a bigger brush right now. I think I'm going to do that. Oh, but there's so much ink on it still. I am saving this webbing over here for later because I feel like that's going to be pretty fun.
Yeah, that can be like noodly.
Yeah, that will be good.
Yeah, it's just like automatic, you know. And it is possible to make it look wrong, and probably pretty easy to make it look wrong. But I feel like I'm pretty confident in my pencils, so I'm going to loosely follow those, and I feel like it's going to come out pretty strong. I am going to switch to a bigger brush to do some of these details in the brick and pipe of whatever setting this is. Don't know.
I feel like the Shocker is just somebody who hangs out around pipes. Like that
Yeah.
just makes sense.
No
to me.
idea. Oh, yeah, I should have broken this brush out like an hour ago. For anybody watching, it's the same brush I was using, pretty much, just bigger. Oh, shit, I haven't even done the line work on Shocker's costume. Oh, shit, or Spider-Man's. Whoops. I haven't done the webbing or the fish nettiness on their costumes.
Yeah, that's something I did some of Spider-Man's line work, but I'm like debating whether or not to go in and throw in more. But I'm not quite sure if the piece is calling for it or not. Don't know if it wants me to do it to it.
I think I'm going to practice on this webbing that doesn't have to be perfect. going to use a fountain pen for it.
Johnny, you work mostly digital now, but what tools did you like to use in physical media? Like, what were your preferred? Like, were you a brush guy, pen guy, Micron? Uh,
I used some brushes. We mentioned it last time. I used a parallel pen quite a bit. I liked that quite a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And there was like a Faber brush that I got in like a massive pack one time for my birthday. There was like, you always get like the standard pack of like loads of different kinds, and one of them was like a really, really fucking long. I mean, it wasn't that long, but it was like a really long brush, and it would just you couldn't predict it. It would go in really weird, crazy ways, and I really, really liked that, and I wore it down so quickly. And after that, I was like, "Fuck, that's gone now," and I haven't been able to get it back since. But that was the one I really liked. But I would try not to get bogged down by the tools too much. I kind of like the Ralph Steadman approach of just using whatever you have at the time. So I just stuff my bag with like stuff I'd picked up over the years, and I would just go out and draw with that. And I would just kind of reach in and grab whatever I had and be like, okay, I'm going to try and draw this with this.
Definitely a problem I have, because I've found tools that I really like, and I've sort of decided, like, nope, I use this brush, and if I can't get it, I'm going to throw a fit. I'm going to be mad.
Yeah.
And I can't draw with it. Which is not true at all. Anytime I have to draw with something else, like even just like brush to pen, like I draw mostly with a brush, at least like figure work and a lot of background work I do with a brush, but I used to draw like exclusively with pens, and so like I can definitely do that, and it is just I don't want to thing.
Yeah.
I am butchering this web work. Shit.
yeah,
I think mine might be done.
Oh, really? Here, I'm going to zoom in on yours, Johnny.
Yeah, I think
Show
so.
off. Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
So I've like colored it as well.
Oh
The
yeah,
color
dude.
job on that was so quick. It was one of those, we were talking about it in the chat, of like sometimes you can just do so much rendering with the line work that the coloring doesn't really have to do that much. So I already knew what I wanted to do. So it's like, how many layers of colors is that even? Like, what? Like 9 layers of colors, just doing the job that I wanted to do. So yeah, I'll probably post that with colors as well. But that's pretty much done, I think.
Awesome, man.
I dig that.
Once I got like the yellow lighting highlights, that was like the one thing I was coloring it, and I was like, oh shit, you know what? He's crawling all over these windows, and the lighting of it is just not showing up on him. That doesn't make any sense. So that was the one thing I figured I needed to add.
Gonna bang out Spidey's webbing here really quick on the costume.
All right. I think I'm gonna have to duck out because it's 1:30 where I am.
Oh yeah.
You guys carry on though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, Nate. Do you want to keep going on? I'm cool if you want to go on, or keep.
Whatever you want to do. I mean, I've still got like a little bit to go here. So if you want to keep going, we definitely can. If not, I can finish this up and send it over to your thumbnail or whatever later.
No, I
I have
can
not had
go
a
on
chance
for a
to
little
look
bit
at these
longer.
properly yet. Fuck, these look great.
Thanks,
All
Johnny.
right. All right.
Yeah,
Have a
thank
good
you.
evening, guys. I'll see you next time. I can't wait to see these up on Insta. All right. Nice
All
one,
right.
guys.
Sounds good, man.
See you,
Take it easy.
Johnny.
See ya.
It's funny. It's nice how well the time difference has actually worked out for all of us. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it is. It is sort of amazing that we all kind of have a time that we can even meet up that works for everyone.
yeah, Johnny and Todd are literally on opposite sides of the planet and are
Yeah.
able to manage this. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, sometimes it crosses my mind. I'm like, oh my god, it's the middle of the night for Johnny. Yeah, also, yeah, not a big deal for him to like get off because it is the middle of the night for him. And this is kind of a weird one anyway because we don't have Todd. So yeah, definitely not a big deal. Which I'm super excited to see Todd's piece. I don't even know.
Yeah.
Like you said, I'm drawing Doc Ock maybe, but I'm not even sure.
Yeah, it's kind of like the mystery element of this episode is what's Todd going to do? Like, I have no idea what
Anybody watching, we have no idea what you're going to see at the end of this episode.
Yeah. It's going to be pretty wacky to give everybody else that little bit of flavor of Todd at the end. It'd be fun if he does some voiceover for it too, but I'm not going to push him on that.
Commentary, that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely feeling the void a little bit this week. I feel like I haven't learned nearly as much about like comics I should be reading.
Yeah, Todd is great to have on this show, not just because of his personality and what he brings artistically to the table, but he is so learned on all of this that like for me, like it's great to listen to him talk about these subjects that we're all passionate about, but he's just so knowledgeable of. He knows so much about everything in this that it's like wow, like I'm really glad that we have you here to kind of enlighten us on things that we're like less informed on, you know?
Yeah, he's been on the scene a lot longer than we have. Obviously, yeah, I'm super stoked that he like wants to do this thing with us and share his experiences. Yep, wants to share those. But yeah, I'm super stoked to have him on the show. Looking forward to next week. Hopefully, we can get all of our tech stuff worked out when he's not on vacation. Oh man, I was gonna draw a web here, and I've totally in the inks lost the pencils where it was supposed to go. So I'm gonna make it up.
No, actually, you know what I was about to say before you were gonna do that. Like just looking at your piece right now, it's cool that you have such a great balance of black and white in your page that even like where you're inking right now in that top right corner, it's directly paralleled on the bottom left corner by that huge white area of the web. Like I think that works really well.
Yeah,
Like,
thank you.
like I
Thank
think
you.
your piece has a really great movement to it. Like in all of the elements that you have, that you're constantly moving your eye like all throughout to catch like what you're doing. It's pretty great.
Yeah, that's something I've been trying to work on more and more. Is like black and white balance, and like I wanted to keep this space fairly white so that the figures really read well. I heard Sean Murphy talk one time about just that, like black and white balance and like where to place blacks and sort of the rules he has in place for himself when he's drawing. I think he uses like the 3/4 rule where like 3/4 of any panel should be black or white so that it reads. And that's something that really up until then I hadn't considered or thought about. But it makes a lot of sense, and it makes for like more dynamic pages, I think. Because when I was younger, I really didn't. Most of my stuff was like just line work. I didn't really spot blacks that often. I didn't really like heavily shade any of my figures. It was a little bit more like, I guess, the approach that like maybe like Frank Quietly has, who is amazing, but that look really wasn't suiting what I wanted from my art. I just didn't know how to add more black ink to the page. And really just the last like few years I've been kind of figuring out how to do that, hopefully successfully.
Yeah, it's funny, like the same concept of like when I was looking through my old portfolios and whatnot and seeing all this work, it's all pencil work. Like
Yeah.
I've only actually been inking for a couple of years, like actually practicing it. Like there was a couple of ink drawings here and there, but like actually learning the craft of how to draw with ink is something I wasn't doing up until like recent, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it took me a while to like accept that like no, you're gonna have to ink your own stuff because my plan coming out of school and really I guess like my whole life was I was gonna be a penciler and I was hopefully gonna have like a cool relationship with an inker like a Jim Lee Scott Williams thing and eventually I kind of realized like no, you're probably gonna have to do it all yourself. And then it became I want to do it all myself. That's why I don't do finished pencils anymore. I do finished as far as like my standards go, but and we've talked about this a little bit. I don't know that I could pencil for an inker.
Yeah, it's such a different ball game to think about it that way because like what you just touched upon was being a little bit of a control freak and being like I'm gonna finish this piece of art that I started.
Yeah,
And so like when you do pencils, it's not about how is that other person going to interpret what I'm doing. It's how am I going to interpret what I'm doing. But to think about it in that way that it's like I'm going to hand this off to my teammate and they're gonna have to do the next part. It's such a different way to have to conceptually think about what you're doing in whatever step you're doing, you know?
yeah, because like the ink drawing is the drawing. It's the finished version of that piece, and so it is. You do have to have a lot of trust, I think, to hand that to someone and go, "Okay, I hope you know what I'm talking about."
Yeah, definitely. And that communication is so key. Like being able to say like, "Oh, that's not what I was imagining for that panel or that whole page even."
This whiteout is fighting me tonight.
Oh
I've
yeah.
got like the old kind of chalky whiteout here, and it's kind of starting to show its age. It's kind of a bummer.
Do you use whiteout or do you use like an acrylic?
It's a Dr. Martin's bleed-proof white. I had some gouache for a while. I don't know if this is gouache. I was typing. No, it's not gouache, you idiot. But I really like it because if you get it pretty wet, you can get like a nice fine line with it that's still pretty white.
Yeah, I definitely need to get something that's a little more like that because the acrylic I'm currently using is just so chunky. Like it's hard to get any real thin strokes with it.
Oh, yeah.
So I got to figure out something that's a little bit more.
And that's what I like about this is I can get a pretty thin line with it if I want it, but I can also go fairly chunky depending on the brush I use. Let's see, what else was I gonna white out? I don't even remember. All my mistakes, of course.
Yeah, I'm kind of winging it at this point. I'm kind of like coming up with new
Yeah,
buildings and
that's
like
where I'm at.
throwing things in because like I'm realizing that like some of this drawing wasn't fully fleshed out. Like I think it was fine, like and I like how it turned out as a whole at the moment. But trying to figure out like blocking out blacks and whatnot as I'm like ooh like where could I use some more blacks? Like I'm debating putting blacks in this side of this building here that would be in shadow, or I'm gonna put some more black up in this building right here to kind of separate it. But just like trying to figure out some more black areas I can just throw some black in. But kind of like Johnny and I were saying, I tend to draw things in much more of a nighttime shading element, like just heavy black. So I'm trying to play with a little bit of like, how can I still use black but not make it look like it's not 12 in the afternoon, you know?
Yeah, that's something that I've been playing around with a lot too in my work is adding blacks when, like it's not necessarily a dark drawing. Like it shouldn't be like nighttime or like even inside or whatever. It's super hard to kind of find that balance. And a lot of it I kind of like admittedly, I'll leave up to colors. I'll draw like a super dark ink drawing, and then when I go into the colors, I'll just make it super bright and hope that it looks like daytime. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. But
yeah, I think that's one of the benefits of color for sure. Is like, granted, for my piece, for example, it might not work because of clearly like the building rooftops are lit, so there's a light source coming from above, as opposed to if it were night and there was light coming from below. But like for your piece, for example, like the colorist could really make that like a bright daytime scene or like a very moody atmospheric nighttime scene,
yeah. Yeah, I might maybe, I was going to challenge myself and try and maybe do some colors on this episode. Like I said, that's not going to happen because this took me way too long. If I had done like the straightforward, Herman Schultz just standing there busting through a wall or whatever, it was going to be, I might have scanned it in and broken out the iPad and done some colors. But maybe one of these days, just like for fun, I'll color some stuff. I've got some drawings actually just sitting over here on my table that I've been thinking that I might color just for practice. Anyway, so might be seeing some more colors from me in the coming days or weeks.
Yeah, you should, man. That's something I'm definitely like playing around with more, between like these pieces I've done for the show and just in general, just to kind of get a better hold of what that element of this whole craft is.
Yeah, I was super impressed with what you did with last week's the Joker drawing, turning it into that cover. That was awesome.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm hoping to kind of do something similar with this one. More of like a minimal palette, less heavy shading, like actual like polygon, like shading elements and highlights, and just kind of leave the color as is. There was something about it in that last piece that I thought really worked well, so I'm going to try to keep pushing that idea further as I work.
Yeah, I thought the colors worked really well because, I mean, they weren't at all overworked. I think it shows a lot of confidence to just go, I think I've said this before, like, this thing is green. I'm going to paint it green, and that's it.
Yeah, definitely.
It seems like such a simple thing, but it is like a really bold, kind of brave thing to do, to just leave it up to, like, nope, the drawing's good enough, and I colored it green, and that's it.
Yeah, especially when you know a little bit about coloring, like when you have like that artistic sense, and you're like, oh, I kind of want to like painting. It's so easy to overwork a painting. Like I've done it many times where like I just keep putting color in and more strokes, when in reality it's just ruining the piece.
Yeah. That's such a hard thing though, to know like when to stop, to know when something's done. I feel like it's kind of easy to do like with a drawing like this because you kind of have a plan. At least I do, kind of when I go in, and I leave a lot up to like the brushwork. But like I sort of knew like when this drawing was going to be done. I've got a checklist of things I've got to do, and but yeah, with a painting, I usually go in just trying to figure it out the whole time, and it is so easy to just go like, oh, I finished this 2 hours ago, and I kept painting. That sucks.
Yeah, definitely. I've done that so many times, especially even with ink drawings, where like I've just overworked the cross hatching or something, and I just turn around and I go, oh, I ruined it. I lost everything that made this piece unique, or everything that made this piece actually work. Like it's just been covered up by black now.
Yeah, so easy to do.
Yeah, it's
like I'm going back webbing right now, and I'm a little nervous about it, but. Actually, I need to erase the pencil. Still seeing the pencils.
Yeah, actually, it's funny. I was just about to do that, but I was waiting for my inks to dry because I've gone at it before where I've like been like, all right, time to erase, and then I've put down the eraser and just smeared a line and been like, oh god, why wasn't that dry?
I just smeared a lot right here, but it's fine. All good.
Adds character.
Yeah.
Adds flavor.
Thing. It's kind of outside of the border of the drawing, so if I scan it in, it'll just get deleted.
When you scan, do you have a scanner big enough? So I assume you and I are pretty much working on like similar dimensions. Like I'm doing 8 by 12 right now. Um,
Yeah, I've got an 11 by 14 here.
yeah. Um,
But I always like leave like an inch or an inch and a half border just to give myself a little room for it to breathe.
mhm. My direction was going to be for scanning art. Do you tile your art, or do you have a scanner that's big enough to like pick up everything?
No, I've got a big enough scanner to get everything. I got it when I was like a senior in college, and I was super stoked that I could scan up to like an 11 by 17 because before I couldn't.
I'm so envious of you because, like, for my
Yeah,
pages, I'm working at 11 by 17, but my scanner is 8.5 by 11, and so I have to tile everything.
Yeah, it was sort of a game changer to be able to just scan a page and go from there.
Yeah, in college they had a ton of the Epson 11 by 17 scanners like all throughout our art building. So like I was never that far away from like the tools I needed. But man, I'm struggling at home in terms of like not struggling. It just adds like an extra like hour to my work to have to tile and then edit the levels.
Yeah, I'd love to get a new like print scan setup because mine works, but it's kind of a frustrating older machine.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, definitely better off than when like you said, when I just had like the regular size print scan all in one that was like 8.5 by 11, and yeah, I used to take like for bigger pieces. Like in college, I did a lot of like even larger like poster size drawings for stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I would just take photos of it. I would try and lay it in the best light I could and take just like photos with my Nikon, and then put those into Photoshop and try and make it look as much like a scan as I could. And that was sort of a nightmare too.
Oh yeah, well I'm sure that's even harder because then you have to line up like perfectly like flat the lens with the like plane that your picture is on.
Yeah, I'd have to get like the exact right angle. And as much as I would try, if it was wrong, as much as I try to tweak it in Photoshop, it would never quite look right. And so I am glad that I have the scanner setup that I do now.
Yeah, I don't know if I could handle that photograph setup. That would be so intense.
Yeah, it was weird and tough, but it was kind of like a last resort thing that I would do. And it would get the job done like in an absolute pinch.
And with projects too, you almost have to like work with what you have at the time too. Like you can't always be picky about how you're getting stuff done. You're like, all right, I have a deadline. I need to get this scanned, or at least digitized as soon as possible. This is how I'm doing it.
Yep, this is what it's gonna be. Yeah, I think I am just about done, unless I'm forgetting something again.
Yeah,
Got Spidey.
What's that?
I said I got Spidey's webbing done on the costume, so that was like the main thing I was missing.
Yeah, that's something that I'm still looking at mine, thinking like whether or not I should go back in and add more webbing to the suit. I did it a little bit more sparingly, but like in contrast to the framing of the buildings and whatnot, I'm like, oh, do I make those lines a little bit thicker? Do I add more of the lines? Like I'm debating that right now, but that could always be something for exterior outside of the podcast. Like one thing I'm definitely gonna do is look up a horn and do a bugle right here on this little billboard, so I can have like a little daily bugle.
Yeah.
Easter egg in there somewhere.
Yeah, I think one thing I'm going to do before I post this is up here the web that's you can't really see it on the camera. The web that's like attached to this piece of brick wall that's falling. I am going to punch that up digitally, go in and add a little bit more detail work to that. Do you ever do that? Do you ever like scan something in and just like add little touches digitally?
Oh yeah, definitely.
I try to keep it all in the inks.
Yeah, I used to do a lot of my like whiteout process in Photoshop, just out of not having like a better paint to use or a better whiteout for that matter. But yeah, I used to use Photoshop for that. Like I would like straighten out my like lines on the outside of figures, and like if I spilled any ink, I would just cover it out with the white in the Photoshop and overlay it and whatnot. But
Yeah, speaking of, I need to get rid of these smudges real quick. Just use that whiteout pen for this stuff, for like the bigger bits.
I'm having one of those moments where I'm like looking at this and I'm like, "Are you done yet? Am I done with this?" But I'm like struggling to know whether or not it's done or if I'm just like nitpicking and like finding areas to be annoyed about. But
Huh.
I think I'm pretty
Yeah, I
much
do that
good.
too. Yeah, it's looking good. Like I said, dude, that Craven pose is fantastic.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm loving yours. It definitely is giving me uh, vibes of the artist who you had mentioned you were trying to riff from a little bit, but not to name names. But it looks
Yeah,
great.
I'm just stealing. I'm just stealing.
No, it definitely has that same like Samney crispness to it. It looks really great.
Yeah, that's something that I've tried to think about a little more because I do tend to do sort of messier brushwork. Because I like people that do that, you know, like a Tommy Lee Edwards or a Sean Murphy or you know, uh, even like Paul Pope sometimes.
Hmm.
But sometimes I look at someone like Chris Samney and I'm like, oh my god, it's so good and sort of like elegant in the way that like it's just shape based. And I do want to do more of that kind of stuff. And I feel like with Spider-Man, it's kind of easier to do that, kind of with Batman, because you do have larger black shapes a lot of time to work with than some other characters. But yeah, I'm actually pretty happy with how this came out, which is good because I was happy with the pencils.
Yeah, I mean, when you showed us the pencils, we were all blown away. We were all like, "Holy crap, dude!" It's like one of the best penciled pieces I'd seen in a long time, professional or otherwise. Like that was strong. You had a really great
Thanks.
composition and everything for it.
Thanks. Yeah, I can't promise that every week it'll be this sort of like complete drawing. Sometimes it'll probably be like a bullshit sketch, but this is a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, next week I was thinking about it as I was doing the pencils for this one. I was like as I was noodling in all the buildings and everything, I was like, never again, never again. So
Yeah.
definitely gonna have to do like a single character next week. Whatever we opt as a group to do as the subject matter. I'm definitely going a
Yeah,
lot
what are we
lighter.
for next week?
I don't know if we've talked about it too much, but I have a couple of fun ideas. Um, I think we should still hold off on inking each other's pencils just for a little bit. Um, I think that will be cool, but uh, I was thinking maybe even like classic cartoon characters could be fun. I know we had talked about a
Ooh,
Cartoon Network episode at one point, but like the other day I was thinking about Thundercats, and I was like, oh, I could draw Lion-O. That would be cool.
yeah,
Um,
that would be a lot of fun.
yeah, so maybe like classic
Yeah,
cartoon characters, or even like if we did a pitch of uh, yeah, even if we like kind of like with the first one, how we did Jack Kirby as opposed to the last two where we've done the Joker, which for the audience you'll probably never see unless we do a sans audio version.
yeah.
But
The drawings are on Instagram. Check those out. They're really good.
Yeah,
Promise.
that was the thing that killed me. Was everybody's pieces last week were incredible. Everyone's drawings from last week were so phenomenal. Not that everyone's
Johnny's was crazy. Like, I know he like finished a lot of the drawing before the episode, but holy shit, dude!
yeah
This joke is like chef's kiss. It's so good.
yeah it had all of those perfect elements of like the Paul Dini animated one, or not Paul Dini, who's the Bruce Timm. It had like Bruce Timm elements, but it was also really unnerving and really creepy. And the whole background with the clowns was perfect. It was so great. It
Yeah,
really killed me. It kills me that I have that video footage of everybody working on those pieces, but I don't have the conversations to put it to.
Yeah. No, that's good. We're just gonna make more better episodes.
More better, more gooder, more art,
More-
more better.
The next one's gonna be more gooder, folks.
Yeah. Stay tuned. We'll just get more gooder as we go on. Cool, man. Yeah, I think that just about wraps up the episode.
Cool.
Yeah, so everybody, this has been Mike Pickard. Today I was joined by Nate Wells. Nate's with me right now. Johnny left the chat. And of
Still here.
course, yeah, Nate's still here. I'm still here,
Johnny's
guys.
got. It's like 2:00 where Johnny is. Don't blame him.
Yeah. It's not his fault that he lives in Europe. And of course, our other co-host couldn't join us today. That's Todd Blackwood. But check us all out on Instagram and other social media platforms. Should be listed below. But anyways, Nate, thanks for joining me, buddy. It was great. Good fun. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll catch you next week.
Cheers.